Chapter 10:14. Strength that surpasses Saint Emperor 2. Origin energy. It's actually origin energy. This is strength that surpasses Saint Emperor. Kaiser became absolutely terrified. He felt life-threatening danger, for the first time, in quite a while from that ordinary-looking streak of white light. Kaiser no longer bothered with Jian Chun, who was only inches away. He also seemed to forget the intense pain from his arm. He looked in the direction where the white light had shot over with an extremely stern expression. Dread filled his eyes. Although he was so powerful that he even placed among the strongest within Saint Emperors, Kaiser knew that he was no stronger than a kid before an expert that had surpassed Saint Emperor. This was because they would be an expert of a completely different realm. The power they used would not be the saint force that ordinary people used, but the origin energy that was on a higher level. May I ask which expert is attacking me from the shadows? Can you please show yourself? Growled Kaiser. He suppressed the shock within him and looked around cautiously. At the same time, a layer of ink-black scales appeared on his body. It covered every inch of his skin, and even his body began to bulge at a visible rate. He very quickly became a 10-meter-tall monster. He maintained a human head, but his limbs had already turned into sharp claws, while 13 jagged spikes protruded from his back. Each spike was around 3 meters in length, and they glistened with cold light. Kaiser had become half human, half dragon. This was his most powerful state. Jianchen and Houston both forgot to flee. They hung in the air in shock as Kaiser's words surpasses Saint Emperor constantly boomed through their heads. Their hearts churned, and they were no longer able to stay calm. Bad. You're a bad person. You bullied Xiaoling's big brother, making him like this. Xiaoling will definitely teach you a solid lesson for big brother. At this moment, an immature girl's voice suddenly rang out. A white-dressed girl with 2 pigtails, who seemed like she was 11 or 12 years old, silently appeared beside Jianchen. She faced Kaiser angrily. This was the first time Xiaoling had appeared without hiding herself, so Kaiser and Houston immediately noticed her. However, they both became stunned at the same time when they noticed it was such a young girl. But they returned to their senses very quickly. Deep shock and disbelief immediately flooded their hearts, as they did not sense when she had appeared even with their strength. Xiaoling, it's you. You've actually left Mercenary City. Jianchen stared at Xiaoling in surprise. He immediately understood she was the expert that had surpassed Saint Emperor and had attacked Kaiser earlier. Xiaoling's anger immediately subsided substantially when she heard Jianchen's voice. She turned around and looked at him in concern. Big brother, Xiaoling can't just watch you being bullied by this big bad person. If Xiaoling did nothing, that big bad person would have killed big brother. Master forbid Xiaoling from leaving the city all those years ago. But to save big brother, Xiaoling will stop caring for master. Kaiser heard every single word from Xiaoling. A gleam of light immediately flashed across his eyes, and he looked toward her in doubt. He cried out, "Are you the barrier spirit of Mercenary City? I never thought that the barrier spirit would leave the protective barrier. Looks like the rumors aren't completely true." Houston also cried out when he saw the childlike Xiaoling. In truth, Xiaoling was a spirit that the earth gave birth to. She was not some spirit of the barrier. She could just control the power of the barrier in Mercenary City. Years ago, the city lord Mo Tianyan had tasked her with protecting and suppressing the seal underneath the city, so she had never left there even after so many years. This was why people misjudged her as a spirit that was born from the barrier. They assumed that she was connected to the barrier and could never leave Mercenary City. Xiaoling's expression changed when she heard Kaiser's voice. She glared at Kaiser with her naive eyes and said angrily, "You bad person. You just bullied big brother. Xiaoling will teach you a good lesson for big brother." As she spoke, Xiaoling casually swung her hand, and a streak of white light suddenly appeared. It shot toward Kaiser with lightning speed. This was the origin energy that only those who had surpassed Saint Emperor could control. It did not have any earth-shaking presence or aura when it shot from Xiaoling's hands, nor did it have any terrifying ripples of energy. Only a mysterious and profound presence circulated within it. Origin energy was a completely new power. It surpassed the understandings of the people from the Tianyuan continent. They could not sense its power and terror from how it looked like. Although it was only a careless wave of her hand, the attack from Xiaoling made Kaiser feel like he could not avoid it no matter what action he took. As such, he forcefully received the attack head-on. Kaiser's powerful body became as weak as tofu before the origin energy. The origin energy directly disintegrated his scales upon contact and turned him into a bloody mess. Arg! Kaiser shrieked in agony. The injury from the origin energy was nowhere as simple as it seemed. The pain was so great that even a Saint Emperor like him could not bear with. Is this origin energy? Thought Jianshan as curiosity flooded his eyes. He had watched the white light strike Kaiser. He could clearly feel a mysterious yet profound presence from it. There's clearly some difference between the origin energy from Xiaoling and the weapons and armor with Rui Jin and the others. I can feel that Xiaoling's origin energy is most pure, without any impurities. Meanwhile, the origin energy on Rui Jin and the others' items also possess a great power that originates from this world, Jianshan thought. Origin energy. This is origin energy. What pure origin energy? At the same time, the Path Lord of Carnal Desires, Langkiros, Heiyu, and Rui Jin also sensed the appearance of the power. They immediately became shocked and stopped fighting. Then, they shot toward Xiaoling's location like lightning bolts. Chapter 10:15. The seal loosens. Kaiser painfully clutched the wound on him in half-human, half-dragon form. He could feel the flesh around the area that the origin energy struck disappear at a visible rate, which caused the wound to rapidly enlarge. The agonizing pain tortured his nerves time and time again, and caused all his muscles to convulse. The origin energy seemed simple and possessed no earth-shaking presence, but its power was indescribably terrifying. The energy seemed to be able to eat away everything once struck, able to turn everything to dust. Jianshan and Houston stared blankly as the wound rapidly increased in size. Their hearts churned as they witnessed the power of the origin energy. They had never imagined that a powerful Saint Emperor would be so weak before origin energy. Arg! Suddenly Kaiser roared out angrily. A tremendous energy surged out unceasingly from his body like a flood. In this moment, Kaiser was using everything he had to stop the residual origin energy within him. He wanted to nullify it. The disturbance from a Saint Emperor, using everything they had, would be doubtlessly earth-shaking. Before the supreme power, all the space in a radius of several hundred meters began to twist constantly as black spatial cracks formed everywhere. Moreover, the ground below Kaiser rapidly sank. The powerful energy forcefully pressed it down. The surroundings were dark. Kaiser's power was enough to cause the world to lose its color, while the energy of the world and world force in the surrounding hundreds of kilometers was affected as well. It became violent, no longer as peaceful as its normal state. All the experts of protector clans in their independent spaces, scattered across the continent, stepped out. They sternly looked in the direction of Kaiser. The eyes of the person with the greatest seniority of the Zhu branch in the Changyang clan, Changyang Zhu Xiao, lit up and glowed like torches. He fixedly gazed into the distance and growled, "Only Saint Emperors can cause such a vast disturbance. The Saint Emperors of the Beast God continent have trespassed our continent once again. Saint Emperors are now invincible existences in the world. Even with the two continents in perspective, there are only 4 Saint Emperors. Yet the magical beast Saint Emperor clearly is using his full strength to make such a disturbance. That's weird. Who's so powerful that forced the Saint Emperor into such a state?" said a great elder in thought from beside Changyang Zhu Xiao. Shock filled his face. The Saint Emperor of the magical beasts must have come to the Tian Yuan continent for the Winged Tiger God. The Winged Tiger God is with Jianshan, while Jianshan has the protection from the 2 experts with the origin energy items. Have they begun fighting with the Saint Emperor? It doesn't matter what's happening. Since they've begun fighting on our Tian Yuan continent, we can't just stand by. Let's go see first, Changyang Qingyan said with a deep voice. Afterward, he casually waved his hand, and the space before him immediately ripped open. He wanted to construct a space gate. However, the ripped space trembled violently, before it slowly closed up once more. He had failed to create a space gate. Changyang Qingyan furrowed his brows. Their fight is too intense. It has broken the balance of space. I actually can't construct a space gate. Let's designate a space gate several tens of thousands of kilometers away from them, since we can't set up one right there. We'll fly over afterward, suggested a great elder. Afterward, the great elders all left through the new space gate. They did exactly as one of them suggested, and arrived a distance from Jianchen's location. Then they flew over. At the same time, the 9 other protector clans, a few ancestors of ancient clans, and some saint kings of various other organizations hurried in the direction that the battle had erupted. Kaiser raised all the energy within him to contend against the origin energy, but he could not stop its havoc. In the end, his wounds only stopped worsening after the origin energy was completely consumed, as it did not have a constant force. Currently, Kaiser's face was moist with sweat, and he was in a horrible shape. He was no longer as awe-inspiring as before. A half-meter-wide hole stood out like a sore thumb in his 10-meter-tall dragon-like body. It was chilling, for tremendous presences flew over like streaks of lightning from afar. Simultaneously, Heiyu, Rui Jin, Hong Lian, and the Tiger Emperor arrived from the same direction. The Tiger Emperor stood beside Kaiser while Heiyu, Rui Jin, and Hong Lian immediately stood before Jianshen. They all stared at the hole in Kaiser's body with shock. I felt a pure origin energy before. Kaiser, who made you injured like this? Lankiros growled. Still badly shaken, Kaiser stared at Xiaoling and said, "It's that girl. I never thought that she's actually the barrier spirit of Mercenary City." What? She's the barrier spirit of Mercenary City? Lankrios cried out uncontrollably in his surprise, and he immediately looked toward Xiaoling. Lankiros immediately became intrigued when he discovered that Xiaoling only seemed to be a young girl. He had only read about the barrier spirit of Mercenary City in some ancient records stored within the Beast God Hall, which previous magical beasts left behind. This was the first time the barrier spirit revealed its true form. He just never thought that the barrier spirit would be a young girl. Didn't the records say that the barrier spirit cannot leave Mercenary City? How has she left Mercenary City right now? Lankiros cried out with his deep voice. Doubt filled him. Rui Jin, Heiyu, and Hong Lian all stared unblinkingly at Xiaoling. They all felt shocked when they thought about the purity of the origin energy that had come from the small girl. They all knew that only those beyond Saint Emperor could control this power. The young girl before them had actually surpassed Saint Emperor. Xiaoling paid no attention to everyone's shocked gazes. She stared angrily at Lankiros and Kaiser. You both bullied Big Brother. You're all bad. Xiaoling must teach you a difficult lesson for Big Brother. Xiaoling swung her hand once more with that, and shot 2 strands of origin energy toward them. The expressions of the 2 Saint Emperors changed drastically when they faced this seemingly ordinary origin energy. However, a feeling of being unable to dodge appeared in both their heads, as if the origin energy had locked tightly onto their presences. It was to the point where they would be struck no matter where they ran off to. Since I can't dodge it, I'll face it head-on. Similar thoughts flashed through their heads. They gritted their teeth and roared out at the same time. Terrifying ripples of energy began to surge from their bodies. Then they struck the incoming origin energy as hard as they could. However, origin energy was not something that Saint Emperors could block. It passed through their attacks like a hot knife through butter, before it directly shot through their bodies. Arg! Both the Tiger King and Kaiser immediately shrieked out miserably. The origin energy caused wounds that began to expand rapidly at a visible rate, as their flesh and blood disappeared bit by bit. Suddenly, Xiaoling at a distant region of space said angrily, Do you really think that Xiaoling can't see you just because you're hiding? You're even worse than the 2 of them to actually work with them and harm Big Brother together. Xiaoling must teach you a hard lesson this time. It won't be as easy as the times before. With that, another strand of origin energy shot out from Xiaoling's hand, as it struck the empty space with lightning speed. Arg! Immediately, another miserable cry rang out. Suddenly, the Path Lord of Carnal Desires appeared, with a fist-sized hole on his chest. The origin energy had punched a hole through him, and the wound constantly expanded. As long as your souls are uninjured, you won't die. Xiaoling will capture you all for Big Brother to deal with after Xiaoling has taught you all a lesson. Big Brother will be very happy, said Xiaoling, before she sent 3 more strands of origin force toward the 3 Saint Emperors. It added another hole to their bodies. Let's go! Langkiros roared angrily at Kaiser. A mist of blood sprayed out from his body, and when it dispersed, he had disappeared. With the Tiger King gone, Kaiser and the Path Lord of Carnal Desires also used fleeing techniques. They instantly disappeared after they paid quite a heavy price. Xiaoling stood with her hands on her hips, as she said unhappily, "With me here, it doesn't matter where you run off to. Watch as Xiaoling captures you 3 bad people." Just as Xiaoling wanted to do something, Mercenary City violently trembled. The entire city that was several kilometers away shook violently, as if it was amidst some great earthquake. Huge cracks formed on the ground of the city. Xiaoling's naive, pure face changed abruptly. She cried out involuntarily, "Oh no, that's bad. A very, very scary expert is attacking the seal." Xiaoling no longer bothered with the fleeing trio, and disappeared before she had even finished speaking. She had reappeared in the depths below Mercenary City. Hidden below Mercenary City was a huge seal. There were extremely few people who knew of its existence. For most of history, there was only Xiaoling, other than Mo Tianyan, who had cast down the seal all those years ago. Mo Tianyan had sealed the entry to the world of Forsaken Saints there. The single seal had prevented experts of that world from reaching the Tianyuan continent, which created so many years of peace of the continent. Chapter 10:16. A shocking expert and extremely special seal locked up the pathway between the world of Forsaken Saints and the Tianyuan continent. Streaks of arm-thick white lights formed the seal. The lights crisscrossed together and sat quietly in the ground like a spiderweb. It gave off an extremely profound presence. The seal was actually completely composed of origin energy. A huge pitch-black pit existed beneath the seal. It was several thousands of meters across and completely black inside. Nothing could be seen. It was like the gates of hell, and gave people a spooky hair-raising feeling. At this moment, the space within the pit began to violently distort. A strand of extremely powerful sword chi broke through the layers of darkness and appeared. It struck the seal with lightning speed. Boom! The seal immediately violently shook after the huge sword chi struck it. Powerful ripples of residual energy shook up the underground, and even affected Mercenary City above. The entire city wildly quaked and shocked countless people inside it. The sword chi teemed with pure origin energy. It did not disperse immediately after it collided with the seal. Instead, it charged onward at the web-like seal like an enraged bull. It caused the seal to stretch into a cone shape. Sob, the layer of the seal master set down all those years ago has broken now. Only this layer remains. Sob, it's all Xiaoling's fault. It's all because Xiaoling didn't listen to master's orders and left Mercenary City. Otherwise, the layer wouldn't have been broken. Xiaoling sobbed as she appeared before the stretched seal. She was like a child who had done something wrong right now. Worry, fear, and deep regret filled her. The seal over there has been broken. This seal can't break no matter what, or the city master built after so much effort will be gone. If the city is gone, master will definitely be angry, Xiaoling mumbled to herself as she choked back her tears. She gently pressed against the remaining seal. In that moment, the vast energy gathered below Mercenary City began to surge quickly and flowed unceasingly toward the seal like the violent tide. In the end, the seal consumed it all. The seal immediately began to glow with a bright light after it absorbed the vast energy, which allowed it to constantly strengthen. Break! At the same time, a wispy voice rang out from the dark pit below the seal. It was impossible to tell whether it was male or female. The voice seemed to be filled with charm, as it resounded from beneath the ground. The sword chi stuck to the seal immediately exploded with a dazzling light. Strands of sword chi powerful enough to shake the world erupted from within, and attacked the seal even more violently than before. It resisted the reinforced seal, and actually became stuck in a stalemate. Oof, what a powerful person! Xiaoling could not help but call out. A sliver of worry flooded her face, and strands of pure origin energy began to surge out from her body. It poured into Seal unceasingly to repel the terrifying sword chi. The Seal finally broke the stalemate and suppressed the sword chi, with Xiaoling's support of origin energy. It slowly receded to its previous location. Seal breaker. The wispy voice rang out in the pitch-black hole once more in a 1.2-meter-long sword chi shot through the darkness with an earth-shaking presence. It struck the web-like seal with lightning speed. The collision of the sword and the seal did not produce a great sound as expected. It gave people the illusion that it was weaker than it seemed, as if the earth-shaking sword was only a hollow cover. However, the dazzling white light of the seal quickly began to darken in the next moment. The final obstacle that blocked the world of Forsaken Saints showed some signs of breaking. My God, oh no! What is this weird power? It actually possesses a great destructive effect on Master's seal, Xiaoling cried out. She immediately became nervous, as she poured even more surging origin energy into the seal, which made it strengthen rapidly. At the same time, the energy gathered underneath Mercenary City began to surge toward the seal at an even faster rate. Xiaoling had only gathered all this energy after so many years, and normally used it to support the seal. Xiaoling could no longer bother with the consumption of the energy with the current danger. The signs of breaking finally stabilized under Xiaoling's full support. It began to recover as fast as it could while it resisted the mysterious experts from the pit. The sword chi and sword pushed at the seal for a while more. In the end, the sword chi completely dispersed as it ran out of energy, while the sword also turned around and disappeared back into the dark pit with a clear resonance. Xiaoling immediately produced a sigh of relief when she saw that the expert of the world of Forsaken Saints had finally given up on breaking through the seal. Signs of exhaustion appeared on her face. It had only been less than 20 minutes, yet it was like a death battle with an expert of the same level for 3 days and 3 nights. To Xiaoling, Xiaoling patted her chest and looked into the pit with some lingering fear. She mumbled, so scary, so strong. The 2 attacks must have come from the same person. If I hadn't made it in time, Master Seal definitely would not have been able to resist a single attack from that person. Suddenly, the space in the pit twisted. One could vaguely see a figure inside the darkness. The blurry person possessed a presence that allowed them to look down on everything. Xiaoling possessed great strength, but her mind was no older than a child's after all. She immediately clutched her mouth when she saw that, and involuntarily took a few steps back. She became rather timid. This seal can't stop me. The day I complete my seal breaker will be the day where this seal will disappear, and that day isn't far away. A wispy voice rang out from the darkness. Although it was extremely cold and emotionless, it was filled with confidence. The figure slowly vanished with that. The ground below Mercenary City became peaceful once again. Xiaoling stared at the patch of darkness blankly, as if it was the gates of hell. A while later, she began to cry painfully. Sob, Master, where are you? Come back quick, Xiaoling is so scared. A majestic, snow-white divine hall stood silently in the snowy land of the Arctic. A person completely clad in silver-white armor currently sat in the center of a room filled with cold air. The only part of her visible were her closed eyes. At this moment, her eyes slowly opened. A cold voice filled with surprise echoed through the quiet room. What a shocking genius! Not only has he reached such a high level of cultivation in 800 years, but he has even created that special battle skill made for breaking seals. It looks like you'll be breaking through that seal soon. I've observed you for 800 years. I wonder how great your future achievements will be. I really do look forward to it. Sigh, what a group of pitiful people. Jian Shun, Houston Ruijin, Heiyu, and Hong Lian remained frozen on the spot. They struggled to calm down their surging emotions. Xiaoling had easily forced 3 great Saint Emperors to flee. They felt extremely shocked from seeing someone who had surpassed Saint Emperor for the first time. I had never thought that there would still be those who have surpassed Saint Emperor in the present world that lacks origin energy. Ruijin sighed deeply a long while later. Although he had learned of the barrier spirit's existence when he went to Mercenary City the first time with Jianchen and Heiyu, the 2 of them had always believed that the barrier spirit was only a Saint Emperor at most. They had never thought that the barrier spirit was something that had surpassed Saint Emperor. The two of them knew that those who had surpassed Saint Emperor were invincible. Even in the ancient times, only 4 experts like this had appeared. Houston floated pale-faced next to Jian Chun for a very long time without saying anything. Xiaoling's voice that referred to Jian Chun as Big Brother constantly rang through his head. His heart had begun to churn long ago. He had never thought that Jian Chun was so close to the barrier spirit of Mercenary City, an existence that had surpassed Saint Emperor. Jian Chun calmed down soon. He looked in the direction of Mercenary City and said, "Since Xiaoling wanted to capture the Path Lord, the Tiger King and Kaiser, but she left with such urgency, has something great happened in Mercenary City?" Rui Jin thought for a while with that before he said, "Why don't we go to Mercenary City and check it out?" Though after the disturbance from that earthworm, the violent energy has flooded everywhere. The space still has not stabilized yet, so we can't construct a space gate. Let's fly over. With that, Rui Jin carried Jian Chun as he flew. Rui Jin made his way to Mercenary City with Hong Lian, He Yu, Houston, and the others. The experts of the 10 protector clans, and various other Saint Kings, from across the continent arrived, where the 3 Saint Emperors had fought Xiaoling soon after they had left. All they discovered was the mess of a place that the region had become. "I can feel a mystery's energy here, very similar to the origin energy on the weapons of the 2 magical beast experts," said Changyang Qingyan. "That doesn't seem right. I can feel that the residual origin energy here is much purer than the origin energy in the weapons of the 2 magical beasts," said the pavilion master of the Pure Heart Pavilion, Wu Chenzi. However, a gleam of light flickered through her eyes. Then, she looked toward Mercenary City and said, "They've already flown off to Mercenary City, though we can follow along and see." The Saint Kings from the Protector clans, and various other organizations, continued toward Mercenary City. Mercenary City had already been thrown into a mess. The violent shaking earlier had alarmed everyone there, and people currently filled the streets. All of them pointed at the densely packed cracks on the ground as noisy discussions flooded their ears. All the people that had come to Mercenary City knew about the protective power over the city. The ground was countless times harder than steel, where even saint rulers could not leave a mark if they struck out as hard as they could. They could not believe that such thick cracks now covered the ground. A group of people of various ages currently floated sternly in the air in the center of the city, as they surveilled the entire city with Tianjian at their lead. Each and every one of them possessed extremely ugly expressions. Chapter 10:17. Deep underground, the ones who floated above Mercenary City were members of the upper echelon of Mercenary City. They were all elders, and even the weakest of them was a saint ruler. "Grand Elder, just what has happened? Our city has the protective power of the barrier, and it's extremely tough. How has it ended up like this now? Has the barrier of our city disappeared?" All the elders fell into a discussion as they stared at the city riddled with huge cracks. They felt extremely suspicious and curious about the incident that Mercenary City had suffered, as well as some panic and confusion at the same time. The Grand Elder sternly stared at the huge cracks that covered all the streets and alleys. He too felt confused, unsure what exactly that had happened to Mercenary City and why it was like this now. Suddenly, Tianjian seemed to think of something. A gleam of light flashed through his eyes, and he thought, "Has something happened to the barrier spirit?" His face immediately darkened slightly when he thought of that possibility. Mo Tianyan left the barrier spirit behind here all those years ago. Its existence was extremely important to Mercenary City, as it was the unnamed protector god of Mercenary City. If something really happened to the barrier spirit, it would definitely be an extremely heavy hit to Mercenary City. It's a pity that I can't communicate with the barrier spirit on my own initiative. I wonder what has happened to Mercenary City. If only Jianchen was here. Though a great battle has just erupted in the direction of the Cross Mountains. There were magical beast saint emperors who took part in it. So by the looks of things, the 2 magical beast experts by Jianchen's side probably fought the saint emperors of the beast god continent once again. Jianchen should also be nearby if that's really the case, thought Tianjian. He had sensed the battle in the Cross Mountains earlier, and wanted to go have a look. However, Mercenary City suddenly began to shake violently, so he had to stay behind. At this moment, several tremendous presences appeared outside and rapidly approached the city with lightning speed. Tianjian's gaze froze, and he quickly looked toward the direction of the presences. He could not help but smile. Jianchen really has come at the right time. I just happened to need him to communicate with the barrier spirit and see what just has happened to Mercenary City. Jianchen, Houston, Ruijin, Heiyu, and Honglian flew over from afar side by side. All of their gazes became mixed when they saw the huge barrier above the city. A sliver of respect appeared in Houston, Ruijin, Honglian, and Heiyu's eyes. It was the respect for the strong. They all knew that barrier spirit was the little girl who had surpassed Saint Emperor. Jianchen never went into detail about Xiaoling's true identity. To him, it did not matter whether Xiaoling was a spirit of the earth or a barrier spirit. It was no longer important. Looks like something big really has happened here now that all the people of Mercenary City are in a panic. Jianchen noticed the difference in Mercenary City from afar, and his brows immediately furrowed in worry. Very soon, Jianchen's group met up with the elders of Mercenary City. After a few greetings, they directly proceeded to the main topic. Senior Tianjian, may I ask just what has happened with Mercenary City? Why has it become like this? Jianchen asked, as he looked at the messy Mercenary City. We don't know either. You can only ask the barrier spirit if you want to learn just what has happened today. Jianchen, you have a close relationship with the barrier spirit. I hope you can communicate with the barrier spirit and ask what caused the incident with Mercenary City. Tianjian asked sternly. I'll try, replied Jianchen. A sliver of uneasiness appeared in his heart for some reason, because he thought about some secretive matters Mo Tunyan had told him before. Afterward, Jianchen softly called Xiaoling's name a few times. However, he did not get any response this time. Jianchen felt even grimmer. Currently, he felt more and more certain his thoughts. He had already connected the unforeseen event of Mercenary City and Xiaoling's loss of composure earlier to the seal beneath Mercenary City. Some problem must have happened to it. Senior Tianjian, I am unable to help you this time, Jianchen said rather dejectedly. He furrowed his brows from worry. He felt deeply anxious about Xiaoling's safety. Sigh. Tianjian exhaled deeply. He raised his head to look at the huge barrier that was still present, and he too furrowed his brows tightly. Since Mo Tianyan founded Mercenary City, it had gone through the wind and the rain, but something like this had never happened before. The light in Jianchen's eyes flickered for a while. He was hesitating over whether he should tell Tianjian and the others about the seal, so that they could mentally prepare themselves. At this moment, an invisible force suddenly surrounded Jianchen. Before Jianchen could even react, it bound him tightly. Then it pulled him downward with lightning speed. Jianchen! Ruijin cried out. He immediately turned into a blur in an attempt to grab Jianchen. However, Jianchen just fell too quickly. Even with Ruijin's strength, he could not grab him. In that instant, an invisible force pulled Jianchen to the ground. Then, he directly disappeared into the ground, as everyone watched on in shock. It left behind no mark on the floor. The expressions of Ruijin, Heiyu, Honglian, and Houston all changed when they saw that. They glanced at each other before they all descended, as if they had a tacit understanding of each other. They wanted to blast open the ground to save Jianchen. Please wait. Tianjian obstructed them and said, There's no need to worry, everyone. Mercenary City is protected by the barrier spirit, so outsiders cannot harm Jianchen in here at all. Since Jianchen is close with the barrier spirit, I assume that it's extremely likely that it was the barrier spirit itself that pulled Jianchen into the ground. Ruijin, Heiyu, Honglian, and Houston immediately calmed down after they heard this. They returned to the skies, as they quietly waited for Jianchen. The mysterious force caused Jianchen to rapidly sink, and the soil parted as he moved downward. As such, he did not become stained with any silt or mud at all. Jianchen had already experienced this before. He knew that Xiaoling was behind this, so he was extremely calm. He let the force surround his body, and did not show any resistance. Very soon, Jianchen arrived in the depths underground. It was completely dark, to the point that he could not even see before him. Even with Jian Chen's eyesight, he could see nothing. Jian Chen subconsciously expanded his presence, but he could only expand it less than 1,000 meters, even with its current power. A mysterious power suppressed his presence. However, through the senses of his presence, Jian Chen could tell that he was in a huge space underground. The energy here has become much thinner than the last time I came here, Jian Chen thought in surprise. He could still remember clearly that when Xiaoling had taken him here for the first time, the energy was so thick that it had almost become liquid. Only a few years had passed since then, yet the energy had already become this thin. It was being consumed at a shocking rate. At this moment, a ball of white light suddenly appeared in the pitch-black world. It illuminated everything. Xiaoling. Jian Chen immediately cried out when he saw the ball of light. The ball of light was from Xiaoling. Her body seemed extremely illusionary, as if she was a figure constructed from light. Xiaoling was no longer as energetic as before. Two clear streaks of tears ran down her cute, innocent face as fear clouded it completely. Something seemed to be frightening her. Jian Chen felt pained when he saw Xiaoling like that. He asked in concern, "Xiaoling, what has happened to you? What has happened?" Wah! Suddenly Xiaoling began to cry. She threw herself at Jian Chen's chest, as she cried loudly, hugging Jian Chen tightly. "Don't cry, Xiaoling, come on. Tell big brother what has happened." Jian Chen hugged Xiaoling back, as he comforted her. Although Xiaoling's body was formed from energy, the energy had basically corporealized. As such, there were almost no differences to hugging a person with flesh and blood, except for the fact that Xiaoling did not give off any heat. Big brother, Xiaoling is so scared. Xiaoling is so scared. Master, where are you? Come back quickly, Xiaoling really is so scared. Xiaoling sobbed in Jian Chen's bosom. She was quite frightened. Jian Chen felt sympathetic, as he looked at Xiaoling's weeping expression. He comforted softly. "Don't be scared. Xiaoling, isn't big brother here? Don't worry, big brother will protect you." Jian Chen comforted Xiaoling for a very long time before she finally calmed down. Afterward he asked, "Xiaoling, tell me honestly, has something happened to the seal?" Xiaoling dried her tears and nodded her head firmly. She said, "Yeah, big brother. Something ran out from the SE dash." Xiaoling suddenly stopped and immediately covered her mouth with her hand. She said with a muffled voice, "No, Xiaoling can't say it. Master said that Xiaoling can't say it to anyone." Jian Chen smiled and said, "Xiaoling, big brother saw your master a few years ago. Your master told big brother about everything here. There's a seal deep beneath Mercenary City, which seals up the entrance to the world of Forsaken Saints. Is big brother right?" Xiaoling unblinkingly stared at Jian Chen with her bright and innocent eyes, before nodding firmly twice. She had basically affirmed Jian Chen's words. "Xiaoling, even your master has told everything to big brother. You shouldn't hide it from big brother any longer. Be good, tell big brother what has happened here, okay?" Jian Chen said, "Okay, but big brother isn't allowed to tell anyone else. Master didn't let me to tell anyone all those years ago," Xiaoling said seriously. Jian Chen nodded silently. Afterward, Xiaoling described everything that had happened to Jian Chen. She hid nothing. Jian Chen immediately revealed an extremely ugly expression when he learned that a peerless expert of the world of Forsaken Saints had been attacking the seal. "Xiaoling, just how powerful is that expert from the world of Forsaken Saints who attacked the seal? Can you defeat him?" Jian Chen asked nervously. At this moment, he was so uneasy that his heart was beating heavily. Xiaoling shook her head without any hesitation and said, "Big brother, that person is very strong. Master previously set down 2 seals all those years ago, one on the other side and one here. That person used a single attack to break through Master's seal on the other side. And the seal here probably would have been broken, as well if Xiaoling didn't use everything she had to support it. Not only did Xiaoling use up all the energy that she had accumulated over many years to keep up the seal, but she even consumed a lot of her power. Xiaoling definitely wouldn't be able to bear with it if that person comes and attacks a few more times." Chapter 10:18. The 3 levels of the origin realm. Xiaoling's words shocked Jian Chen. Xiao Ling herself was a supreme expert who had surpassed Saint Emperor. She had to use her own strength, the seal Emotianyan left behind all those years ago, as well as the vast quantities of energy accumulated over countless years beneath Mercenary City, to block the attack of the expert from the world of Forsaken Saints. So, just how terrifyingly powerful was this person's strength? Jianchen immediately became filled with anxiety after learning what had happened to Mercenary City. He was almost certain that the person who had attacked the seal had surpassed Saint Emperor, which made Jianchen feel extremely grim. The world of Forsaken Saints had already given birth to people who had surpassed Saint Emperor, and there must have been quite a few of them. There would also be quite a lot of Saint Emperors. On the other hand, within this world, the war god of the 100 races, Ergens, had already died in battle out of the 4 supreme champions. The strongest human, Emotianyan, had already disappeared with the winged tiger god, with only the sea goddess still alive. However, only her soul remained, so her strength was nowhere near her prime. Even with the 3 other great races in perspective, there were only a few Saint Emperors. How could they possibly repel the invasion of the terrifying world of Forsaken Saints with just this much? Xiao Ling, if you were to face up against the person who attacked the seal, would you be able to beat him? Jianchen stared fixedly at Xiao Ling. There was only Xiao Ling in the current world who possessed strength beyond Saint Emperor. Xiao Ling shook her head without any hesitation and said, "Big brother, Xiao Ling definitely can't defeat that person. Xiao Ling assumes that person is at least at late returnance, or even at reciprocity." Returnance? Reciprocity? Jianchen stared blankly when he heard these 2 unfamiliar words for the first time. He asked seriously, "Xiao Ling, are the returnance and reciprocity you speak of realms beyond Saint Emperor?" "Yeah. These are all things that Master once told me. Master said that the Saint Rulers, Saint Kings, and Saint Emperors on the Tianyuan continent are all part of sainthood, while the realm beyond that is the Origin Realm. However, the Origin Realm is split into 3 smaller realms, which are Receival, Returnance, and Reciprocity. Each smaller realm has another 3 levels," said Xiao Ling, "so above Saint Emperor's is the Origin Realm." Jianchen came to an understanding. Afterward his face twitched, and he asked Xiao Ling, what level of cultivation are you up to right now?" "Big brother, Xiao Ling is only at early returnance right now. Xiao Ling can't defeat that person," Xiao Ling said pitifully. She seemed like she had been wronged. Jianchen was silent. With Xiao Ling's explanations, he had gained an even clearer understanding toward the strength of the world of Forsaken Saints. Those who had surpassed Saint Emperor should be at Receival, while those who had even surpassed that should be at Returnance. Meanwhile, the person who attacked the seal was extremely likely to be at Reciprocity, which shocked him deeply. In the ancient times when Emotianyan had entered the world of Forsaken Saints all by himself, he killed over 20 people that had surpassed Saint Emperor, at Receival, and another 3 beyond that, at Returnance. According to his estimations, it was extremely likely that Emotianyan was at Returnance or Reciprocity. Yet now, Jianchen felt extremely pressured as the world of Forsaken Saints had given birth to an expert as great as Emotianyan. After he bid Xiao Ling farewell, Jianchen heavy-heartedly returned to the surface. Tianjian, Ruijin, and the others remained floating high up in the sky. The various Saint Kings from the Protector clans and other organizations had gathered as well. Kaiser's presence had alarmed all of them and drawn them over. The group of elders behind Tianjian had decreased substantially. Many of the elders at Saint Ruler had all been sent off to stabilize the situation of the city, as well as create a reason for the phenomenon. Look Jianchen's back. They immediately discovered Jianchen as soon as he appeared on the surface, and they all descended to his side. "Jianchen, are you fine?" Ruijin was the first one to speak. He was filled with concern. Although he had only met Jianchen a while ago, Jianchen was directly related to his chances of meeting his clansmen again. As a result, it could be said that Ruijin and Hong Lian cared for Jianchen's life the most after Tianjian and Houston. "Jianchen, what did the barrier spirit say to you? Did you understand why the phenomenon earlier had occurred?" Tianjian asked impatiently. All the people from the 10 Protector clans were slightly startled by Tianjian's questions. Their gazes toward Jianshan immediately began to flicker with light. If Changyang Xiangtian of the Changyang clan had some connection to the barrier spirit of Mercenary City, it would be an extremely bad piece of news to them. After some thought, the great elders of the protector Changyang clan all began to smile slightly at the same time. Their gazes toward Jianshan carried some pride. Jianshan did not immediately answer Tianjian. He hesitated with a sunken expression. He pondered whether he should tell them all about the matter or not. A while later, Jianshan finally made up his mind. He said, "Senior Tianjian, the matter is important. So can we find a place where we can talk alone?" Tianjian also understood the severity of the matter when he saw Jianshan's sternness. He did not dare to hesitate at all, and immediately brought Jianshan into an independent space within Mercenary City. Afterward, Jianshan told Tianjian everything about the world of Forsaken Saints and Shaoling's situation over there, including when he met a fragment of Mo Tianyun's soul. He only hid the matter concerning the Yinyang Saint Rock. When Tianjian learned about the world of Forsaken Saints from Jianshan, he became stunned. He did not return to his senses, even after a very long time. The existence of such a world shocked Tian Yuan, where he struggled to stay calm, even with his mental fortitude. He was speechless. Only after an extremely long time did Tianjian finally return to his senses. He sucked in a deep breath and slowly suppressed his shock. He stared at Jianshan with interest and asked him with a slightly trembling voice, "Jianshan, is that all true? Is there really a tunnel to the world of Forsaken Saints hidden beneath Mercenary City?" The sudden trembling of Mercenary City was also because an expert from that world, who has surpassed Saint Emperor, was attacking the seal? "I'm absolutely certain," Jianshan replied sternly. He had really wanted to continue to hide the matter of the world of Forsaken Saints. This was to prevent panic on the Tianyuan continent after the new broke out. However, he could no longer afford to choose this course of action now that the matter had developed to such a state. Tianjian's complexion changed very quickly, and it became extremely ugly. He said hoarsely, "We need to tell the 10 protector clans about this immediately, so that we can come up with a plan of counterattack. Jianshan, come with me as well." Tianjian left hurriedly with Jianshan. Tianjian immediately found the people of the protector clans and members of the other organizations after he left the independent space. Then, he sternly invited them to a meeting in Mercenary City. He even invited Ruijin, Hong Lian, Yu, and Houston. Houston and Hong Lian did not follow along due to their injuries. Instead, the elders of Mercenary City gave them a place to recuperate. Only Ruijin and Yu followed along. Several elders of Mercenary at St. King gathered with several dozen experts from the protector clans and other organizations in a majestic hall. Throughout the entire process, Tianjian maintained an extremely sunken expression. No one understood the reason for this other than Jianshan. They had no idea what had happened that would make the Grand Elder of Mercenary City behave like this. Tianjian cut right to the chase and told everyone present about the news regarding the world of Forsaken Saints that he had learned from Jianshan. He went into particularly great detail about their strength. All of them became dumbstruck after learning about the world of Forsaken Saints. Disbelief flooded their faces. The news from Tianjian was doubtlessly like a bolt from the blue. It stunned them all. "Grand Elder, what did you say? There's a seal beneath Mercenary City that seals the entrance to another world? Grand Elder, is that true? Does the world of Forsaken Saints really exist? Are they really that powerful? Grand Elder, that's a little too exaggerated. Let's not talk about whether that world exists or not first. Just over 20 experts who had surpassed Saint Emperor, and 3 people even beyond that is shocking enough. Yet all of them actually died to Mo Tianyun. We find that extremely difficult to believe. Grand Elder, may I ask where you obtained this information?" An uproar broke out after a lull of silence. All the people present, regardless of being from the protector clans or other organizations, spoke their doubts. What Tianjian had said was just a little too out of hand, to the point where no one present believed it. "Everyone be quiet, please." Tianjian raised his hand to stop all their discussions. Afterward, he pointed to Jianshan and said, I heard all this information regarding the world of Forsaken Saints from my friend here, Jianchen. Jianchen's understanding is much greater than mine. If everyone has any further doubts, you are welcome to ask Jianchen. What? You heard this information from Jianchen? Ha 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 ha. Grand Elder, aren't you a little too naive? You'd even believe such an outrageous thing, said a ruddy old man, as he laughed aloud. He did not believe the information at all. Jianchen glanced at the old man. He recognized him. It was a great elder of the Yuan sect. Yeah, Grand Elder. How can you just believe something so outrageous? It must be fake, no doubt. Otherwise, why would there be no record of something so great within the Protector clans at all? Another great elder of a Protector clan added. The pavilion master of the Pure Heart Pavilion clasped her hands at Jianchen and said, My friend here shouldn't be someone who likes to tell lies. But the matter regarding the world of Forsaken Saints is just too outrageous. May I ask if you have any evidence for the other world's existence? Or maybe you could lead us to the seal underneath Mercenary City. We wish to hear the truth regarding this. The Protector clans were all founded in the ancient times and had survived since then. They were even older than Motianyan. So all of the people from the Protector clans felt extremely confident. Any major matter that had occurred in this world would possess records in their archives, while the world of Forsaken Saints, a huge matter itself, was not present at all. This was why they did not believe in its existence. Also, such important news came from Jianchen, who was a junior, which made it even harder for them to believe. Chapter 10:19. Jianchen's Desire Right. Brother Jianchen, why don't you take us to below Mercenary City? That way, you can show us the seal, and we can confirm whether this is real or not. Otherwise, it really is hard for us to believe your words, said a striking middle-aged man. He did not belong to the Protector clans, and was actually an ancestor of an ancient clan. He was extremely powerful, and his name was well known, even among the Protector clans. Jianchen stood calmly beside Tianjian. Their doubts did not surprise him at all, as it was all in his expectations. Indeed, this news was just too shocking. No news regarding the world of Forsaken Saints had ever appeared on the Tianyuan continent either, so anyone who suddenly heard about it would find it hard to believe as well. If the person who had told Jianchen the news was not Motianyan, but a child far younger than him, Jianchen would not have believed it either. He would just treat it all as a joke. Jianchen calmly glanced past everyone. He did not see any seriousness among them even after they learned about the world of Forsaken Saints. Instead, they were all apathetic. Some of them even smiled sarcastically. None of them cared about the matter. Jianchen could not help but sigh gently inside. He shook his head. Apologies, but I cannot take you underground to inspect the seal. Anyway, I have told you everything I know about the world of Forsaken Saints. Whether you believe it or not will be up to you. The region below Mercenary City was Shaoling's territory. Without Shaoling's permission, even Saint Emperors would not be able to enter there. Jianchen knew without even thinking that it would be impossible to get Shaoling to take them all down to the seal. The matters regarding the world of Forsaken Saints really are a bunch of lies. Jianchen, weaving such an outrageous story to trick us. Just what are you trying to do? Said a great elder of the Yuan sect with a rather aggressive tone. Jianchen had some disagreements with the Yuan sect, so he naturally did not respond politely. He stared coldly at the great elder and said, You will naturally know in the future if the matters regarding the world of Forsaken Saints are a bunch of lies from me or not. The meeting broke up very quickly. All the people from the Protector clans returned to their respective clans. The battle with the magical beast Saint Emperor had initially drawn them over, but no one was in the mood to pay attention to it after what had happened to Mercenary City. In the end, Jianchen's make-believe story regarding the world of Forsaken Saints had affected them in particular, disturbing their thoughts. Although none of them believed the foreign world's existence, they firmly memorized its name. The fact that the foreign world once had over 20 experts that had exceeded Saint Emperor had shocked them in particular. None of them believed Jianchen's words, but over 20 people that had surpassed Saint Emperor was a huge deterrence force by itself. Jianchen settled down in a room Tianjian organized to recuperate, while Tianjian and the various saint kings of Mercenary City all gathered in the floating divine hall. Grand Elder, do you really believe what Jianshan has said? Is there really a huge sealed deep underground Mercenary City? If the world of Forsaken Saints really does exist, and the tunnel to it has been sealed up underneath Mercenary City, the City Lord should have left behind some information as well, so that people in the future can keep watch. Why would he hide it? All the elders spoke their suspicions. They also struggled to believe the world of Forsaken Saints and the matters around it. Tianjian paced around the center of the hall with his arms crossed. He tightly furrowed his brows and said in thought, "It really is hard to accept such an important matter to spring up so suddenly. However, if that's not the case, how would the trembling of Mercenary City be explained? And it's not like Jianshan is a person who lies. He is so close with the barrier spirit as well. So I think the world of Forsaken Saints is more likely to be true than false." The elders immediately became stern after they heard Tianjian's analysis. One of them said with a deep voice, "If this really is true, then what force will we, the Tianyuan continent, use to repel the invasion? According to Jianshan's description of the world of Forsaken Saints, we're not their opponent even if the Tianyuan continent, the Beast God continent, the Sea Race, and the 100 races work together. After all, it's no longer the ancient times. We don't have the 4 supreme champions and the many saint emperors. If the world of Forsaken Saints really does invade, we probably don't have any abilities to resist at all," said another elder. His expression was very ugly. Tianjian pondered, as he slowly paced around the main entrance of the divine hall. He raised his head to look at the void and mumbled, "The war god of the ancient times has reappeared on the Tianyuan continent, while even the winged tiger god is born once again. The sea goddess is still alive, while a genius has appeared on our continent, Jianshan. Perhaps they have come into existence because of this disaster? That they're only born at the same time in order to repel the world of Forsaken Saints? Only the City Lord knew about the world of Forsaken Saints. The City Lord had also set down a rule with the elders. If the winged tiger god reappears, we must support it when it has not fully matured. He also stated that we should not worry about any harm the winged tiger god would bring to the Tianyuan continent. Has the City Lord foreseen, all those years ago, that the seal to the world of Forsaken Saints will break when the winged tiger god reappears in the future? If it's really like that, the City Lord's abilities all those years ago probably would have already reached heaven-defying levels, far exceeding our level of understanding." Suddenly, Tianjian turned to the elders behind him and said, "It doesn't matter if the world of Forsaken Saints is real or not. Do not leak it out, or it'll throw the entire continent into fear." In a cold, quiet room, milky white light dyed the dark room snow white. Jianshan sat in the center as he used Radiant Saint Force to heal himself. Although Jianshan sustained very heavy injuries in the battle before, he only used an extremely short amount of time to fully recover under the healing of both his chaotic body and Radiant Saint Force. Jianshan slowly opened his eyes after making a full recovery. He immediately removed the Octotera Divine Hall from his space ring. It was currently the size of a fist, but Kaiser had already reduced the majestic Divine Hall to ruins. It was no longer as mighty as it was before. Jianshan stared at the ruined Divine Hall with a pained expression. Although he had only obtained it recently, it had helped him greatly. The Divine Hall's existence allowed him to treat the Protector clans as equals. The power of the Divine Hall has not disappeared. It should be repairing itself right now, but it's extremely slow. By this speed, it'll take at least several decades, or even over a century to full repair. Jianshan mumbled as he stared at the Divine Hall, before he placed it back into his space ring. He knew that he would not be able to use it for a very long time in the future. Afterward, Jianshan pulled out the Saint Artifact. The artifact had endured several attacks from Kaiser. Although Kaiser failed to destroy it, clear marks were left behind. Despite this, the level of damage was insignificant compared to the Divine Hall. The Saint Artifact could also repair itself, so it would return to pristine condition without much time. The Saint Artifact really is much tougher than the Octotera Divine Hall. If a Saint Emperor wants to destroy it, they'll need to expend quite a lot of effort. On the other hand, Kaiser smashed the Octotera Divine Hall after just a few attacks. However, the only problem with the Saint artifact is that its attacks are just too weak. If I come across a Saint Emperor, I won't be able to enter the artifact's space at all, or it'll be no different than throwing myself at the jaws of death, murmured Jianshan. The defense of the Saint artifact was startling, but it was just an item in the end. It could not flee at all before a Saint Emperor, and if it ended up in the hands of that Saint Emperor, it would be destroyed one day or another. Jianshan held the Saint artifact, as he thought deeply. He thought, I've told the 10 protector clans about the world of Forsaken Saints, but they don't believe it exists at all. They all think that I am lying, and that I'm weaving up a story to trick them. Sigh. Looks like making them believe the existence of the world of Forsaken Saints is virtually impossible. Though, it doesn't matter if they don't believe me. An expert greater than Xiao Ling has already appeared in that world, and there will definitely be people at Receival. There are probably quite a few Saint Emperors as well. They're nothing that this world can repel. Everyone here is too weak. The top priority is to increase the overall strength of this world, but the only way for them to all undergo a noteworthy increase is by refining the Yinyang Saint Rock. It's the Yinyang Saint Rock's existence that's making breakthroughs much harder now. According to what Senior Mo Tianyan said, once it disappears, the laws of the world will return to how they were in the ancient times. The experts currently at the 9th heavenly layer, or great perfection of Saint King, will only need an extremely short amount of time to reach Saint Emperor, while more Saint Rulers and Saint Kings will appear. It's a pity that the power of the Yinyang Saint Rock is just too powerful. I can't absorb it with my current strength. I can probably only absorb it after I reach the 5th layer of the chaotic body, with the heavenly enchantress, according to the Azulite swords. Jianshan could not help but think of the erotic incident that had occurred between him and the heavenly enchantress when he thought of her. He immediately became strewn with mixed emotions. He still needed to cultivate with the heavenly enchantress in order to absorb the power of the Yinyang Saint Rock and refine the Yinyang Qi into his own power. The 5th layer of the chaotic body, the 5th layer of the chaotic body. I am currently at the 3rd, so just how fast can I reach the 5th layer? I can absorb the energy of the rock once I reach the 5th layer. Moreover, according to the sword spirits, I can reach the 8th layer after I absorb all of its power, or even the 9th. At that time, I should be able to fight those at Returnance or even Reciprocity. Jianshan stood up, and his eyes became filled with desire. Chapter 1020. The Empyrean Demon Orbs takes a master after he had completely healed himself completely. Jianshan left the room. Rui Jin and Heiyu were waiting outside. Jianshan's heart immediately warmed up when he saw how Rui Jin and Heiyu still guarded him at all times, even in Mercenary City. He clasped his hands toward the two of them and said, Senior Rui Jin and Senior Heiyu, I have kept you waiting. It's no problem. It's not like we had anything better to do here. So we just came to the location where you went into seclusion, just in case some accident happens to you like before. Chuckled Heiyu. Rui Jin stared at Jianshan for a while and said, Jianshan, are the matters regarding the world of Forsaken Saints true? Heiyu stopped smiling and quickly became stern with Rui Jin's sudden question. Jianshan nodded, correct. It's completely true. The seal to the world of Forsaken Saints really does exist below Mercenary City, and experts from that world attacked the seal. These attacks caused the trembles. Rui Jin became stern. He immediately stopped talking about it and said, Jianshan, let's go. Afterward, Jianshan met up with Taita once more. He spoke with him for a while before leaving the independent space with Rui Jin and Heiyu together, returning to Mercenary City. Ming Dong was still in a crucial moment of his breakthrough, so it would be inconvenient for Jianshan to disturb him. When Jianshan returned to Mercenary City with Rui Jin and Heiyu, the city had already returned to its previous appearance. The protective power had completely mended the cracks on the ground, as if it was not the crack-ridden city from before at all. The elders of Mercenary City announced a casual reason to explain the trembling of the city. They calmed down the panic and suspicion among the countless mercenaries. Under Rui Jin and He Yu's lead, Jianchen went to find Hong Lian and Houston, who were currently recovering in an inn. They were both in the same inn. I greet Uncle Xiao and Senior Hong Lian. Jianchen greeted the two of them politely as soon as he met them. He quickly glanced past them and found that Houston was still injured and had a pale face. On the other hand, Hong Lian seemed fine, except for the exhaustion she struggled to hide. Jianchen could also sense clearly that Hong Lian's presence was much weaker than before. Although Hong Lian was a phoenix that had lived for several millennia, she only seemed to be in her 20s. Hong Lian immediately began to glare at Jianchen viciously when she heard how he referred to her. Then she said with some slight anger, "What senior? Jianchen, do I really look that old?" Jianchen became stunned with that. He had never expected Hong Lian to react so violently from being referred to as senior. Rui Jin smiled at how Hong Lian had reacted and said, "Hong Lian, since when did you become so much like a young girl? It doesn't seem like you." Hong Lian used her hand to play around with her hair. After that, she turned around and sat down on her bed. She stared at Jianchen in interest and said, "Jianchen, I've paid quite a heavy price to save you. 4 consecutive rebirths will lead me into 40 years of weakness. Talk. What treasure will you give me to make up for my loss?" Hong Lian did not seem to be joking at all, and her words were seriousness. "I will never forget Senior's kindness for saving my life. I will definitely return the favor unfold if I get the chance in the future," said Jianchen, as he clasped his hands without any extra thought. Rui Jin walked over and patted Jianchen's shoulder. He smiled gently and said, "Jianchen, Hong Lian's joking with you. Don't treat it so seriously." Hong Lian seemed to have not heard Rui Jin's words at all. She glared at Jianchen rather unhappily and said, "I said to not call me senior. Jianchen, listen closely. Don't ever call me senior again. Just call me by my name, Hong Lian." "Okay." Jianchen clasped his hands at her. After some thought he said, "Hong Lian, Uncle Xiao, you're still injured. Why don't you enter the artifact space? I can get the artifact spirit to heal all your wounds." Houston's eyes lit up with that. He coughed twice and said rather weakly, "That works. With the help from the Saint artifact of the Radiant Saint Master Union, I can recover from these injuries that would normally take several decades in a short while." Then, Jianchen pulled out the Saint artifact and sent Houston into the artifact space. Afterward, he turned to Hong Lian and said, "Why don't you enter the artifact space as well to heal Hong Lian?" Hong Lian glanced at Jianchen, and she closed her eyes to focus on her meditation. She said, "My weakness is from backlash of the rebirth of fire. My strength has fallen from great perfection to the 5th heavenly layer, and the Saint artifact can't heal it. I can only recover slowly. Of course, if you have any extremely valuable heavenly spiritual resources, that can reduce my time of weakness as well." "Heavenly spirit resources? Does the dragon's saliva count?" Jianchen asked urgently. Hong Lian shook her head gently. "Dragon's saliva is only a heavenly resource. It's nowhere near the invaluable heavenly spiritual resources." Jianchen became rather dejected. He knew that Rui Jin had brought over Hong Lian as a powerful helper. If she could fully recover her strength, he would have one more powerful helper at his side. "Master, the holy water of the Spirit Sea can help this little phoenix recover her strength." At this moment, the voices of the sword spirits sounded in his head. He had not heard them for quite a while. Jianchen became delighted. He immediately focused his attention on his sea of consciousness and saw that the 2 sword spirit revolve around the multicolored stone in the form of 2 balls of light. In the recent years, the sword spirits had always been absorbing the stone to recover their strength. Jianchen could clearly feel that the azulate sword spirit were much more powerful than before with a single glance, while the stone had also grown smaller. "Ziying Qing Sua, are you saying that the divine water of the world can help Hong Lian recover from the backlash of using the rebirth of fire?" Jianchen asked. The holy water of the Spirit Sea that the sword spirits mentioned was the divine water of the world among the sea race. "Correct. We understand a few things about the Phoenix clan. They will be weakened for a period of time every time they use their innate ability, the rebirth of flames, resulting in a great decrease in strength. If they use it consecutively, the period of time will be lengthened as well. It's fortunate that the little phoenix isn't powerful. Every time they use rebirth, it'll only result in 10 years of weakness. In our original world, it would be thousands, tens of thousands of years, or even longer every time they used a rebirth. In order to shorten the amount of time weakened, a few experts of the Phoenix clan had traveled all over the world in search of a method. In the end, they found that the holy water of the Spirit Sea was a liquid that could help them, explained Ziying. Jianshen's attention returned to his body. Although he knew that the divine water of the world could allow Hong Lian to recover immediately, he only had one portion, which was for forging the Azulent swords. He could not give it to Hong Lian. I'll immediately go looking for the water the next time I return to the sea race, thought Jianshen. Currently, he believed he was strong enough to enter the dangerous areas of the sea realm in search of the water. Jianshen entered the artifact space once more after he left Hong Lian to rest. He first visited Yu Yu, Xiaobai and his mother, comforting their alarmed feelings. Then, he directly proceeded to Uncle Xiu's location. Uncle Xiu made a full recovery very quickly under the healing of the artifact spirit's radiant saint force origin energy. As it was his first time witnessing the origin energy of radiant saint force, he exclaimed and gasped in admiration at the power and wonder of the radiant saint force origin energy. With a flip of his hand, a book appeared in his hand. The Blood Demon Emperor had left behind this cultivation manual in the Octaterra Divine Hall. The baleful Yin force within had stopped attacking Jianshen long ago, with the Empyrean Demon Orb's submission. Jianshen passed the book to Uncle Xiu and said, "Uncle Xiu, please check out this book." As soon as Jianshen pulled out the book, Houston began staring at it unblinkingly. He immediately accepted it without any hesitation after he heard Jianshen's words. Houston immediately produced an interjection of surprise as soon as the book entered his hands. His old and profound gaze also lit up in wonder, and he cried out as he stared fixedly at the book. Baleful Yin Force. It's actually Baleful Yin Force, and it's several-fold more powerful than the Baleful Yin Force I control. Houston did not stop the Baleful Yin Force, and allowed it to worm its way through his body toward his soul. As soon as it came into contact with his soul, not only did it pose no threat to Houston, it was devoured instead, becoming part of his own power. However, the rest of the Baleful Yin Force shot off like a frightened bird as soon as Houston devoured a small part of it, receding out of his body and back into the book as fast as it could. It fell silent, no longer daring to appear again. This Baleful Yin Force actually even possesses a shred of intelligence. What a surprise, what a surprise! Houston could not help but sigh in wonder. He felt even more curious regarding the contents of the book, and immediately began to flip through it. However, his expression changed when he saw just the first page. His eyes became flooded with surprise that he struggled to conceal, and the surprise increased as he flipped through more pages. In the end, it turned into deep shock and disbelief. This is the cultivation manual of my Bloodsword sect. Jianshen, where did you get this book from? Houston suddenly shut the book and stared at Jianshen in interest. Afterward, Jianshen told Houston about the book's origins and everything he had learned from the memories of the Blood Demon Emperor. Houston immediately became stunned when he found out the founder of the Bloodsword sect was actually a member of the Sea race. His heart began to churn as he struggled to accept or believe all of it. Uncle Xiu, this is the Empyrean Demon Orb. It should be very useful to you. Then, Jianshen passed over the Empyrean Demon Orb. Uncle Xiu slowly calmed down as he stared at the orb in Jianshen's hand. He reached toward it subconsciously. However, as soon as Uncle Xiu touched the orb, the Empyrean Demon Orb immediately flew up from its original state of lying quietly in Jianshen's hands. It turned into a faint streak of red light as it shot toward Uncle Xiu, before disappearing into the center of his eyebrows. Uncle Xiu's eyes quickly dulled, and he closed them. He had directly fallen unconscious. Jianshen quickly caught his body, slowly laying him on the ground. He knew that nothing would happen to him, as it was only a process of the Empyrean Demon Orb taking on a master. Chapter 1021. Tracks of the murderers. Houston silently lay on the floor with his eyes closed. He seemed to be at peace. No one knew just what would happen to him in the process of the Empyrean demon orb taking him as a master. The process went for far longer than Jianshan had anticipated. He stood by Houston's side for 7 whole days and nights, until Houston finally woke up. Jianshan could immediately sense that Houston's gaze had become much sharper than before, as he slowly opened his eyes. "Uncle Xiao, how is it? Is everything successful?" Jianshan asked out of concern. Houston rose up from the ground and firmly stood. Unconcealable delight filled his eyes, which also possessed some mixed emotions. Never did I think, never did I possibly think that the cultivation method of my Bloodsword sect was actually from this Empyrean demon orb. Houston produced a long sigh of wonder. Only now do I know that the unique cultivation manual of my Bloodsword sect is adapted from the Empyrean demon arts. Not only is it incomplete, but it's far weaker than the Empyrean demon arts. Houston sighed emotionally after he learned the truth. Who had ever thought that the Bloodsword sect of the 3 great assassination organizations hid such a startling secret? Uncle Xiao, the Empyrean demon arts is a cultivation manual that surpassed the Saint tier. If you cultivate it, I believe you'll be able to break through to Saint Emperor successfully without much time. Jianshan smiled. If Houston could become a Saint Emperor, it would be greatly beneficial for both himself and the Tianyuan continent. A sliver of emotion appeared in Houston's eyes, but it disappeared very quickly. After some thought, he said, "I only have a little more than 100 years of life left. It's not very long, so it'll completely depend on the wonders of the Empyrean demon arts, if I can break through to Saint Emperor in that time or not." Jianshan's heart tightened. He had never thought that Uncle Xiao would have so little life remaining. Although over a century was a very long time, it would only be equal to going into seclusion once for people at Uncle Xiao's level. I hope Uncle Xiao can break through to Saint Emperor as soon as possible using the Empyrean demon arts. Jianshan prayed secretly. The only pity is that my soul seems to be under some type of restriction from the Empyrean demon orb, such that I can't transcribe the contents of the cultivation manual. Otherwise, I could complete the cultivation manual of the Bloodsword sect. Houston found this to be unfortunate. At that moment, Houston seemed to think of something. After hesitating slightly, he pulled out a blood-red arrow banner and said to Jianshan, "Jianshan, there are still 2 people alive out of those who murdered your parents. If you want to take revenge, take this arrow banner and go find the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect. They know where the 2 of them are," said Houston, as he passed the arrow banner over. Den's killing intent immediately began to shine in Jianshan's eyes. He could still remember clearly that there were a total of 5 people who had murdered his parents. He had killed 3 of them with the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect in the City of God several years ago, while the 2 more powerful people remained alive. They had fled using a secret technique. Jianshan originally thought that the 4 protectors had felled the 2 other murderers. He did not expect them to be still alive. Jianshan slowly extended a hand and accepted the arrow banner from Houston. He clenched it tightly in his hand, as he said icily, "I will find the 2 of them with the greatest speed possible, and make them pay a heavy price for what they did all those years ago." Houston glanced at the banner arrow in Jianshan's hand, and he smiled profoundly. However, the expression disappeared very quickly, and he said, "Jianshan, I'll immediately return to Longevity Valley for secluded cultivation as soon as I leave the Saint artifact. I'll try to break through to Saint Emperor before I pass away." "Jianshan, you've killed quite a lot of people in your journeys in these few years. Moreover, your strength has increased just too quickly as well. Once you deal with all your matters, bring little Fatty with you to Longevity Valley. I hope you can stay there for 10 years. Uncle Xiao, I will definitely listen to you and stay there for 10 years after I deal with my matters at hand," said Jianshan seriously. He respected Uncle Xiao, and it was not only respect. He knew that Uncle Xiao was thinking for him for all this time. Houston happily nodded. The fact that Jianshan could remain neither arrogant or rash despite his increased strength satisfied Houston. "Jianshan left the Saint artifact with you, Rum Guinness, Xiaobai, and Houston. Houston bid farewell to everyone as soon as he left the city and returned to Longevity Valley alone. Jianshun was impatient to find the other two murderers, so he did not stay for much longer in Mercenary City either. He directly moved off after he bid Tianjin farewell. Big brother, are you leaving again? Just as Jianshun made his way through the giant barrier around the city, he heard Xiaoling's voice. She was unwilling to part with him, and she seemed like she was on the verge of tears. Jianshun looked around, but he did not see Xiaoling. As a result, he spoke to the thin air. Xiaoling, Big Brother still has some important matters to deal with, so Big Brother cannot stay behind with you. Big Brother will come and see you as soon as he has time, okay? Ruijin, Heiyu, and Hong Lian did not show any odd expressions this time. Jianshun seemingly spoke to himself. They looked around with a rather courteous gaze. They knew that the barrier spirit who had surpassed Saint Emperor was currently talking with Jianshun. Additionally, she had concealed herself in this region of space. They could not find her location no matter what with their current strength. Big Brother, Xiaoling feels that the people of the world of Forsaken Saints will break through the seal without much time. Big Brother is still too weak. Xiaoling wants to help Big Brother increase his strength. Xiaoling can invoke the mysteries of the world for Big Brother to comprehend. Xiaoling's soft voice rang out. Her voice was no longer as energetic as Jianshun had once heard. Instead, unhappiness, misery, and alarm filled her voice. Jianshun could imagine how pitiful Xiaoling was right now, even though he could not see her. Right now, Xiaoling was like a fragile little girl that a group of despicable bad people had frightened. Without anyone to rely on like her parents, she was filled with helplessness and fear. Xiaoling, Big Brother really has important things to deal with, so Big Brother can't comprehend the mysteries of the world that you can invoke. However, Big Brother has some friends. Why don't you invoke the mysteries for them to comprehend, so that they can grow stronger faster? Jianshun said. However, he was internally delighted. With that, he could bring over all the 6th cycle Heaven Saint Masters and Saint Rulers from the Changyang clan of Lore City, and get Xiaoling to invoke the mysteries of the world for them to comprehend. As long as it's Big Brother's friends, Xiaoling can invoke it all of them. Big Brother, are your friends them? But they're at the great perfection of Saint King. The mysteries of the world for breaking through to Saint Emperor are just too complicated. It's very hard for Xiaoling to invoke it completely, so Xiaoling might not be able to help them. Xiaoling became slightly dejected, as if the fact that she could not help Jianshun left her very unhappy. No, of course it's not them. Jianshun quickly comforted Xiaoling. At the same time, he introduced her to Ming Dong, who was currently trying to break through in Mercenary City. This way Xiaoling could help him out. After some consideration, Jianshun also left behind Rum Guinness, so that Xiaoling could invoke the mysteries of the world for Rum Guinness to comprehend. That way, Rum Guinness' strength would increase. As for Xiaobai, he was a winged tiger god, so he did not need to comprehend the mysteries of the world like ordinary people thanks to his natural talent. Enough energy was the only requirement, so Jianshun did not leave behind the white tiger. On the other hand, Tai Ta was the war god of the 100 races. His path of cultivation was different from ordinary people. He did not need to comprehend the mysteries of the world. As a result, Xiaoling did not need to invoke the mysteries for him. Jianshun originally wanted to leave behind Yu as well, but she was just too weak right now. She was nowhere near the level where she needed to comprehend the mysteries of the world, so he could only drop the idea. Xiaoling moved very quickly. As soon as Jianshun told her the people to invoke the mysteries too, she immediately took Rum Guinness deep underground. Ming Dong, who was currently cultivating in an independent space of Mercenary City, also disappeared. Xiaoling had secretly him taken away. Even Tianjin failed to notice his absence. Jianshun carried Yu, as he left Mercenary City with Ruijin, Heiyu and Honglian. They traveled toward the location of the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect, under the guidance of Arrow Banner from Houston. Once I eliminate the murders of my parents from all those years ago, I'll immediately return to the Changyang clan and bring over my great-grandfathers as well as Jiedatai. That way, Xiaoling can invoke the mysteries of the world for them. I'll visit the Felicity Empire of the three great empires after that. By Jian, you've devastated my flame mercenaries, so I will definitely not forgive you, thought Jianshen as he soared in the air. These were his plans for the future. The blood-red arrow banner flowed with a faint red light in Jianshen's hand as it led the way. Since Jianshen did not know the precise location of the four protectors, he could not get Rui Jin and the others to rip open a space gate and arrive there immediately. Chapter 1022. Luo Duo. The Longqi Kingdom was one of the 8 great kingdoms of the Tianyuan continent. It stood as an equal to the Qinhuang Kingdom and possessed a history that was several tens of thousands of years long. One could not underestimate its power. While Saint Ruler stayed and protected the imperial palace, the Longqi Kingdom was just as peaceful as it was every other day. Its majestic and dominating halls filled the imperial palace. A vast and tremendous presence filled the surroundings. Groups of soldiers clad in armor patrolled the palace, as they moved around with their chests up high, as they marched at a unison pace. They silently protected the peace of the palace. At this moment, 2 figures that were so blurry that they were almost invisible entered the palace extremely quickly. They silently shot toward the depths. Then, they disappeared into a hall that had been empty for a very long time. They had completely erased their presence, so they alerted no one with their arrival. Even the Saint Rulers protecting the palace failed to notice the arrival of these 2 unwelcome guests. 2 disheveled old men in tattered clothing carefully leaned against the door, as they observed the activity outside with great caution. They had completely erased their presence, and had even held their breaths. They seemed extremely nervous. The 2 old men finally became relieved after they discovered nothing from their observations. At the same time, they collapsed onto the icy cold ground as they panted heavily. It's fortunate that we didn't alert the Saint Rulers in the palace. Situ, your presence erasing technique really is impressive. We should be able to hide here safely for the next few days, an old man said through a communication technique. He was weary. It doesn't matter how profound this presence erasing technique is. The 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect will still able to find us. We can't shake them off no matter what, replied the other old man with a similar communication technique. They both behaved extremely cautiously, unwilling to even make the slightest noise, just in case it would alert the Saint Rulers in the palace. The 2 beggar-like Saint Rulers were Old Man Situ and Matang. They had suffered from the pursuit of the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect in the past few years, as they ran for their lives. The Longqi Kingdom is a subsidiary of the Felicity Empire of the 3 great empires. Probably even the 4 protectors do not dare to create a disturbance here. We should be very safe here, Old Man Matang communicated. Old Man Situ nodded in agreement and replied, "You're right. The 4 protectors will catch up very quickly. They know we're hiding here." Despite this, as soon as they approach the imperial palace, the Saint Rulers from the palace will definitely stop them. A great battle might even occur. As they fight, we can keep watch and strike out suddenly to defeat a protector together. That way we can kill one of them. Old Man Matang's eyes lit up. That's not a bad idea. The 4 of them have basically chased us through the entire continent, so it's about time for them to pay a price. 2 days later, 4 cold-faced, middle-aged men in blood-red robes arrived in the air. They directly traveled toward the imperial palace. The 4 of them radiated with an invisible baleful force. The temperature would plummet wherever the 4 of them passed, and it would become as cold as an ice cavern. The 2 of them are hiding in this city. The previous sect master has contacted us with a secret technique. He instructed that once we find the 2 of them, we must not act rashly. We need to wait for the new sect master to arrive and wait for his orders. Let's find an inn and rest for now, a protector said expressionlessly, before entering the city with the 3 others. Who do you think the new sect master is? I can be sure that he definitely has some hatred for the 2 people we're chasing. But our Bloodsword sect has already stepped away from the continent for 1,000 years. I haven't heard about any elders in the sect that have some resentment toward them, a protector said with a deep voice. He was filled with doubt. Shuesan, shut up. The matter of the sect master is not something we can discuss. A protector's face sank, and he immediately glared toward the speaker. The protector referred to as Shui San immediately shut up. As the four protectors walked through the streets, their similar appearances, and their traces of baleful force immediately became the center of attention. All the pedestrians and mercenaries gave way to them. They could already tell that it would be unwise to provoke the four of them, as they had sinister appearances. The four protectors traveled side by side. They had recovered their usual coldness, which made them seem unapproachable. At this moment, four pepper-haired old men in white robes appeared on the street. They also stood side by side, just happening to block the paths of the four protectors. They seemed like they had waited there for quite some time already. The four old men all seemed extremely ordinary. None of them possessed any presences, and they seemed like ordinary people. They attracted no attention, even though they stood on the street in such a fashion. The four protectors immediately stopped as they were blocked. They stared coldly at the four old men, but none of them said anything. At this moment, one of the old men clasped his hands toward them and said, "We are the four imperial protectors of the Longqi kingdom. May I ask why the four experts of the Bloodsword sect has come to our Longqi kingdom?" said the old man nonchalantly. His tone carried a sliver of coldness and an unwillingness to yield. The Bloodsword sect had already disappeared from the Tianyuan continent for 1,000 years, but it was still one of the three great assassination organizations. There were no experts within the kingdom that could ignore them when the four of them arrived at the same time, which was why four saint rulers of the Longqi kingdom had immediately arrived to stop them. "We are the four protectors of the Bloodsword sect. We have come in pursuit of traitors of the human race," a protector said emotionlessly. "This is the imperial city of our Longqi kingdom. There are no so-called traitors. Please leave quickly," said an imperial protector unyieldingly. He did not fear the infamous Bloodsword sect. The way the Bloodsword sect does things has never been decided by others. All four protectors stood emotionlessly as coldness filled their eyes. Slivers of killing intent had already appeared. The traces of baleful force on them also became denser. They were clearly in a battle-ready state. The four imperial protectors were indeed very unwilling to give in, but the four protectors were even more so. The four imperial protectors immediately thought of giving in when they saw how inflexible the four protectors were. They knew that if they did not do that, a battle with the four protectors would definitely occur. "This is our Longqi kingdom, not your Bloodsword sect. If you forcefully want it that way, you'll see what happens." The four imperial protectors immediately left after throwing down that threatening sentence. The unique baleful force of the Bloodsword sect was renowned throughout the entire continent. Everyone feared it, so the four imperial protectors did not want to fall out with them at all. As he watched the four imperial protectors leave, a protector mumbled, "They seem to have very deep hatred for us. In an assassination over 1,000 years ago, the king and two imperial protectors died at the hands of our Bloodsword sect. Of course they would have resentment for us," a protector explained emotionlessly. The four imperial protectors gathered together in the imperial palace. All of them were stern. "I never thought that the people of the Bloodsword sect would appear in our Longqi kingdom once again. Over 1,000 years ago, the Bloodsword sect claimed the lives of two of our imperial protectors. We have to avenge them. Over 300 years ago, Imperial Protector Luo Duo successfully broke through to Saint King. He's currently an Imperial Protector of the Felicity Empire. While one of the Imperial Protectors the Bloodsword sect killed was Luo Duo's younger brother. We should contact him immediately and get him to assist us." The four Imperial Protectors immediately sent someone through a space gate to the Felicity Kingdom to pass on the news of what was happening here to Luo Duo. On the other hand, the four protectors of the Bloodsword sect settled down in an inn within the Longqi kingdom. They stayed in there meditating all day long without taking a single step out. They tried to sense the two old men's precise location, as they waited for the new sect master to arrive. A middle-aged man in white robes sat on a huge bed within a beautifully adorned hall in the Felicity Empire. His appearance was ordinary but firm, and he gave off an unwavering feeling. However, he did not have a head full of hair that matched his age. It was completely gray, and formed a rather peculiar combination with his face. The man was Luo Duo. He was a saint king, and currently an imperial protector of the Felicity Empire. A ruddy old man stood courteously before him. He was an imperial protector who had hurried over from the Longqi kingdom. Currently, he was informing Luo Duo about everything regarding the appearance of the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect. The Bloodsword sect. Luo Duo slowly opened his eyes. A sharp light immediately began to flicker in his eyes, together with a surging hatred. Imperial Protector Luo Duo, people of the Bloodsword sect have come to our Longqi kingdom once again. I wonder what should we do? Please instruct us, Imperial Protector Luo Duo, said the Imperial Protector of the Longqi kingdom. He clasped his hands as he bowed courteously. What to do? Of course to kill them, to take revenge for my younger brother, Luo Duo said without any extra thought. But the sect master of the Bloodsword sect, the Imperial Protector, hesitated. Very deep fear filled his eyes. Luo Duo got off his bed and said coldly, I've looked through the information regarding the sect master, especially in the Felicity Empire. According to what I know, Houston does not have much more time left, so there's no need to consider him. There is no one else within the Bloodsword sect that is worthy of the Felicity Empire's attention other than Houston. And if Houston decides to interfere, there will naturally be someone from the Felicity Empire who will block him. Houston brought the glory of the past 1,000 years of the Bloodsword sect. Once he disappears, the glory of the Bloodsword sect will become history. Chapter 1023. The sect master arrives. The Imperial Protector from the Longqi kingdom immediately became overjoyed after they heard Luo Duo's words. He hurried to clasp his hands and said, Since we don't need to fear the Bloodsword sect anymore, why stop there, Imperial Protector Luo Duo? We can directly uproot the Bloodsword sect and take revenge for what happened over 1,000 years ago. A cold light flickered immediately began to flicker in Luo Duo's eyes. He lowered his head in thought and said, The sect master Houston is still not dead, so we can't finish them off. Otherwise, Houston will probably resist with all he has, even if it results in his death. If a saint king at great perfection throws away his life to take revenge against us, it will be a disaster that can completely destroy our Felicity kingdom. However, if we just kill the saint rulers who were in the Longqi kingdom, it should be alright. Luo Duo's entire presence suddenly changed. His eyes glowed, and he abruptly stared at the Imperial Protector, who stood to one side politely. Then, Luo Duo said seriously, Immediately return to the Longqi kingdom and surveil the activities of the experts from the Bloodsword sect. Just in case, I must see the other Imperial Protectors of the Empire before I move against them. Yes, sir. The Imperial Protector immediately returned through the space gate in the Imperial Palace of the Felicity Empire, while Luo Duo did not hesitate at all. He immediately proceeded toward the forbidden grounds deep within the palace, as dense killing intent flickered in his eyes from time to time. Brother, it's been over 1,000 years since you died in the hands of the Bloodsword sect. Brother wasn't able to avenge you then, but now that the opportunity has come, Brother will swear that I will use the Felicity Empire to immediately wipe out the Bloodsword sect after Houston passes away. I will avenge you. Back then, Luo Duo had the choice of staying at the Longqi kingdom after he had broken through to Saint King. He could have allowed the kingdom's status to soar. However, he chose to come to the Felicity Empire as an Imperial Protector without any hesitation, with the most important reason being the Bloodsword sect. He had always wanted to use the Felicity Empire to eliminate the Bloodsword sect. In the Longqi kingdom, the Imperial Protector brought back Luo Duo's orders after returning from the Felicity kingdom. As a result, the 4 Imperial Protectors did not continue to create trouble for the 4 Protectors. Instead, they stayed in the Imperial Palace, as they sensed the Protectors' presences. They observed their activity at all times. However, the 4 of them failed to notice the 2 unwelcome guests had appeared in the Imperial Palace and were currently hiding silently in a desolate place. In the blink of an eye, 2 days passed. It was extremely peaceful during this time, and the imperial city of the Longqi kingdom functioned as normal. People moved about daily in its bustling, noisy streets. It was very lively, At this moment, several whooshes rang out. Several figures rapidly approached the imperial city from afar. They traveled extremely quickly and arrived in the air of the city, despite the fact that they were near the horizon a second earlier. "They're in this city," said an extremely handsome young man in black robes. He seemed to be in his 20s. He held a blood-red arrow banner, while his gaze was as sharp as a drawn sword. He slowly swept past the city with his gaze. They were Jianchun, Ruijin, Heiyu and Honglian. After several days of travel, the four of them had basically crossed a large portion of the continent and had arrived here, according to the directions of the blood-red arrow banner. Although they all flew, only Jianchun was not at the great perfection of Saint King. Their comprehension of the mysteries of space was at an extremely great level. They traveled with spatial force. Although it was not as exaggerated as traversing millions of kilometers in a single step with a space gate, they were still unbelievably fast. As a result, Jianchun used an extremely short amount of time to travel over 10 million kilometers from Mercenary City, whilst Ruijin carried him. As soon as the four of them arrived in the air of the city, the four protectors opened their eyes at the same time and roused from their meditations. One of them said, "I can sense the presence of the Bloodsword token. The new sect master has come. Let's go welcome them quickly." With four red blurs, the four protectors all flew out of the window. They appeared in the air like phantoms and faced Jianchun. The four of them first gathered their attention on the blood-red banner arrow in Jianchun's hand, before they slowly looked toward him. They became stunned when they recognized Jianchun properly, where even their gazes became blank. They were filled with disbelief. None of them had ever thought that the new sect master was not a member of the upper echelon in the sect, but the young Jianchun. Jianchun remained as usual. He glanced past the four of them, before he clasped his hands at them. "I am Jianchun. Thank you, protectors." Jianchun was still grateful toward the four protectors. He would never forget that it was the four of them who arrived in time when the Changyang clan faced a disaster. They had prevented the clan from suffering too great of a loss. Otherwise, Old Man Situ and his cronies would have probably flattened the entire clan. The people they harmed would not just be Changyang Ba and Bai Yuntian. The four protectors returned to their senses very quickly. Jianchun's polite treatment surprised the four of them. Without any hesitation, they all dropped to one knee in a single motion and called out. "The four protectors of the Bloodsword sect greets the sect master." "What? Sect master?" Jianchun also became stunned with how the four of them referred to him. But he came to an understanding very quickly. There was probably a rule in the Bloodsword sect that the owner of the banner arrow was equivalent to the sect master. As he was currently in possession of it, the four protectors naturally took him to be the sect master. "Please do not misunderstand, protectors. I am not your sect master. Uncle Xiao has only lent me this banner arrow. He intended to let me use it to find the four of you." Jianchun hurried to explain as he thought. I guess Houston was Uncle Xiao's original name. He was known as the sect master of the Bloodsword sect. He probably changed his surname after stepping back from the continent 1,000 years ago. After all, the matter that happened 1,000 years ago has affected Uncle Xiao just too greatly. The four protectors did not rise. One of them said with their head down, "The old sect master has already contacted us using a secret technique to inform us that he is stepping down, and that the person in possession of the banner arrow is the new sect master of the Bloodsword sect. All people must absolutely obey the sect master's decisions and commands." "What did you say? Uncle Xiao passed over the position as sect master?" This time, the surprised person was Jianchun. The four protectors had described it extremely clearly, so no matter how confused Jianchun was, he could understand that Uncle Xiao had passed on the position of sect master to him. It was just that the news had come too suddenly, which made it hard for Jianchun to accept for some time. He had never thought that his status would undergo a huge change the moment he accepted the banner arrow from Uncle Xiao. He did not know that he would unknowingly become the sect master of the Bloodsword sect. The Bloodsword sect was one of the 3 great assassination organizations, which could shake up the Tianyuan continent. It could not be undermined. Although it could not be compared to the protector clans, It was no weaker than an ancient clan. The 4 protectors have been waiting here under the old sect master's orders for the new sect master, as well as surveilling the 2 traitors carefully. Please command our next actions. The 4 protectors spoke in unison, as if they were mentally connected. Jianshan thought in silence. The murderers of his parents were here right now, so he was not in the mood to deal with the entangling matter of sect master. As a result, he placed it aside for the time being and said, "Do you know where the 2 traitors are right now? Have you still yet to kill the 2 of them after these years of pursuit?" "Sect master, the 2 of them are hiding in the imperial palace right now. The old sect master ordered a few years ago for us to chase but not kill, injure but not capture. As a result, the 2 of them are still alive," said a protector. "Is that so?" Jianshan came to an understanding. Afterward, he looked towards the majestic imperial palace and said, "Let's go. Head to the imperial palace with me." As he said that, Jianshan took the lead and flew off first, while Rui Jin and the other 2 followed closely behind him. After them were the 4 protectors, who traveled side by side. Jianshan's group arrived outside the imperial palace very quickly. Then, they directly flew into the space above it bravely. They directly stopped above the center of the palace, levitating several hundred meters in the air, as they looked at the many well-adorned palaces. "Bloodsword sect, you've gone overboard to trespass in the skies of the imperial palace. Do you really think that my Longqi kingdom is nothing?" A furious voice boomed from below. Although it sounded ancient, it was filled with vigor and resounded through the surroundings. It even dispersed the clouds. 4 ruddy old men flew out from the imperial palace with that. They shot into the air with lightning speed and tremendous presences, facing Jianshan's group from 100 meters away. The imperial protector's voice broke the peace of the palace, and it all became messy in that instant. A large number of guards surged out from various places of the palace, but when they discovered that the enemies were in the air, they immediately became dumbfounded. All they could do was watch anxiously. Chapter 1024. The new sect master's strength. The 4 imperial protectors of the Longqi kingdom faced Jianshan's group from 1,000 meters away. Their expressions were all ugly. The people of the Bloodsword sect had already come. Yet the imperial protector Luo Duo, they relied on the most for this matter, still had not arrived. This made them feel that the situation was extremely bad. Although 4 of the 8 people are hiding their presences, and we can't sense their strength, they're floating in the air without the use of the energy of the world. They must be all saint rulers. That's 8 saint rulers. The 4 of us aren't their opponent. The 4 imperial protectors calculated themselves. They could not act rashly as their opponents outnumbered them. People of the Bloodsword sect, this is an important part of the imperial palace. You are not welcome here, so please leave immediately, an imperial protector said nonchalantly. Jianshan furrowed his brows toward the cold attitude of the imperial protector. He glanced past the 4 of them, and did not say anything. He immediately enveloped the imperial palace with his presence, and found the 2 old cronies. They were hiding with their presences, and had concealed themselves very quickly. Jianshan clasped his fist toward the imperial protectors and said, "Sirs, I am in pursuit of enemies. The enemy is currently hiding in the imperial palace, so please make an exception for me." The enemies you speak of as members of the Bloodsword sect are probably people that others have placed a rich remuneration on. You all act too arrogantly. Our Longqi kingdom may not be as great as you all, but we're not something that can be trampled on. Don't you dare kill anyone within the imperial palace, said an imperial protector in an unyielding tone. They thought Jianshan had come to kill some important figure within the palace. Jianshan's face sank slightly when he heard this, and he said, "If the 4 of you insists on stopping us, I can only run the risk of offense." The 4 imperial protectors shivered inside. They knew that conflict was unavoidable, so they immediately began to radiate with tremendous presences. At the same time, saint weapons appeared in their hands, and they were now ready for battle. Jianshan's lips curled into a sneer. Just as he was about to take action, 4 blood-red blurs flashed before him. The 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect had arrived before Jianshan at the same time, and blocked the 4 imperial protectors of the Longqi kingdom. A long blood-red spike had already appeared in each of their hands, while a thick layer of baleful force radiated from them. A battle was about to occur. Ha 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 ha. I never thought that after holding up for 1,000 years, the Bloodsword sect would still possess their previous spirit. Still so arrogant. At this moment, laughter boomed in the sky. Afterward, the space nearby began to distort violently. Someone ripped the space open soon afterward and formed a space gate. A middle-aged man, who seemed to be roughly 40 years of age, emerged from inside. He possessed an ordinary appearance, except for the fact that his hair was already gray. He instantly arrived before the imperial protectors of the Longqi kingdom, and at the same time, a tremendous presence began to radiate from him. It almost caused the surrounding air to freeze. The 4 imperial protectors immediately relaxed greatly when they saw the middle-aged man. They became excited. Imperial Protector Luo Duo, you've finally come. If you have come one step later, the Bloodsword sect would have probably slain the 4 of us. Luo Duo's face sank with that. Killing intent poured from his eyes without any restraint, as he looked at the 4 protectors and said coldly, "You people of the Bloodsword sect are getting more and more fearless, coming again and again to my Longqi kingdom to create trouble. But it's a pity that the current Longqi kingdom is no longer the Longqi kingdom of 1,000 years ago. Since you've come today, don't leave. Stay put forever." Luo Duo spoke extremely arrogantly. He had anticipated long ago that the sect master of the Bloodsword sect, Houston, was reaching the end of his life. Even if he killed a few of the sect's experts, Houston would not run such a huge risk to come and offend the Felicity Empire. If he did so, he would cause the destruction of the Bloodsword sect. The 4 protectors all became stern. They could already tell from Luo Duo's presence that he was a Saint King, and not something they could deal with as 5th heavenly layer saint rulers. It would be difficult for them to survive even with their baleful force, as the disparity in strength was just too great after all. Jian Chen, who stood beside the 4 protectors, began to laugh from anger after he heard the arrogant words of Luo Duo. He growled, "To speak so arrogantly, do you think that there's no one present who is stronger than you? Before you speak, why don't you worry about yourself first? Let's see if you have the capacity to speak like that." Luo Duo immediately focused his glare onto Jian Chen, before he quickly scanned past Rui Jin, He Yu, and Hong Lian behind Jian Chen. He could not tell their strength, but he felt no fear, as he had the support of the Felicity Empire. "Brat, who are you? Name yourself." Luo Duo growled at Jian Chen. "How dare you? He is the new sect master of the Bloodsword sect. You cannot be so impolite." A protector of the Bloodsword sect called out before Jian Chen could respond. A sliver of surprise immediately flashed across Luo Duo's eyes when he learned that Jian Chen was actually the sect master. He could not help but observe him closely. He smiled gently and said, "I never thought that you'd be the new sect master of the Bloodsword sect. It has really surprised me. May I ask if Senior Houston is well? Who do you think Senior Houston is? Do you think he's someone who you can ask about? However, since you said that you wanted to keep the people of the Bloodsword sect here forever, let's see the great skills that you possess, and see if you have that capacity or not," Jian Chen said emotionlessly. Then he passed the 4 protectors and arrived at the very front. He stared closely at Luo Duo. Luo Duo's lips curled into a sneer. A strand of killing intent flickered in the depths of his eyes, and he said with his deep voice, "All right, since the new sect master wants to see, I'll follow your wishes." As he said that, Luo Duo grabbed at the thin air. Invisible world force immediately began to gather in Luo Duo's hand, which he struck toward Jian Chen. Luo Duo did not hold back with the palm strike. As soon as he struck out, it surged forth with an overwhelming might. The terrifying ripples of energy caused the surroundings to tremble violently. Jian Chen remained perfectly composed. He had no need to use his sword against a mere second heavenly layer Saint King like Luo Duo. Chaotic force surged from his chaotic Niden and instantly condensed around his right hand. Then he struck out directly. Jian Chen's attack was simple, but the force hidden within could not be underestimated. As the punch traveled through the air, The space became littered with tiny cracks. Boom! Jian Chen's fist loudly collided head-on, with Luo Duo's invisible palm strike condensed from world force. Powerful ripples of residual energy splayed out and shook up the surroundings, which caused the space within a radius of 1,000 meters to twist wildly. It became a blur. How is this possible? He actually broke through my palm so easily. Luo Duo was internally shocked. The strength of the new sect master had greatly exceeded his expectations. Luo Duo, it's time that I make you pay for your arrogance earlier, Jian Chen said coldly. He took a step in the empty air and immediately arrived before Luo Duo. He threw another similar punch toward Luo Duo's chest. Luo Duo suddenly became grim. After witnessing Jian Chen's strength, he no longer dared to be so arrogant as before. An extremely powerful saint force surged wildly from within him and condensed into a huge flame-red sword of palm width in his right hand. Afterward, he stabbed toward Jian Chen's fist with lightning speed. Jian Chen's lips curled up into a sneer. His fist did not change in its trajectory, and he directly struck the tip of Luo Duo's huge sword. He actually wanted to use his body to resist the attack of a saint weapon from a second heavenly layer saint king. He's a madman. This sect master must be a madman. Does he really think that he can use his fist to defeat my saint weapon? If he's so confident, I'll cripple his right arm. Luo Duo sneered inside, and he put some more force into the strike. Bang! Jian Chen's fist collided with Luo Duo's sword and produced a muffled sound. A terrifying force knocked the fist and sword apart before splaying out in all directions. It shook up the 4 imperial protectors, and the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect, who watched in the surroundings, were helplessly knocked backward. Luo Duo's fist had not pierced Jian Chen's fist as the former had imagined. Instead, it was unscathed with no damage at all. Luo Duo's full-powered attack had actually failed to even pierce Jian Chen's skin. Not only did Jian Chen's 3rd layer of the chaotic body elevate his strength to the 3rd heavenly layer of Saint King, but it also elevated his defense to such a level as well. Currently, he could take attacks from 3rd heavenly layer Saint Kings and come out unscathed. Only those beyond that posed a threat to him. Luo Duo could not even harm Jian Chen with his strength of the 2nd heavenly layer, unless he used a Saint tier battle skill. How is this possible? Just how is this possible? How is your fist so hard? Luo Duo stared at Jian Chen's unscathed hand, as he was dumbstruck. Disbelief flooded his face. Jian Chen said nothing and charged up again. He threw another similar punch at Luo Duo as dark chaotic force flickered gently on its surface. An aura filled with destruction flooded the space, which shocked all those present. The punch this time was much more powerful than the 2 before. A gleam of light flickered through Hong Lian's eyes as she watched from afar. She said with a deep voice, "Just what is this power Jian Chen is using? Why have I never even heard or seen about it? There are no records regarding it in my inherited memories either." Rui Jin and He Yu shook their heads at the same time. Rui Jin stared at Jian Chen unblinkingly and said, "I don't know either, but I can feel that the power he uses is very strong. It feels like it is not completely mature, yet with a lot of space for improvement." Luo Duo's face changed abruptly as he faced up against Jian Chen's punch. He immediately lifted his sword horizontally to block. Clang! Jian Chen's heavy fist struck the saint weapon and created an earth-shaking sound. The terrifying energy immediately caused Luo Duo's sword to deform slightly, while a great force was transmitted through it. It shook Luo Duo's right arm until it numbed. Then that hand became powerless. The huge sword struck his chest heavily from the great collision and shattered several of his ribs. Luo Duo spurted a mouthful of blood as he was immediately knocked backward. He became pale, no heavily injured, but a pure white piece of jade had already appeared in his hand as he flew backwards. He crushed it without any hesitation. Chapter 1025. Fighting the Imperial Protectors of the Felicity Empire. Luo Duo revealed a relaxed smile after the piece of jade had been shattered. Even though he was heavily injured, he had no need to worry about his life. Before Luo Duo had come to the Longqi Kingdom, he had thought about everything that could happen, so he made plenty of preparations. He found the other imperial protectors of the Felicity Empire and got them to help out when he was in a crucial moment. The crushing of the jade earlier was the method to contact them. Although the Longqi Kingdom was very distant from the Felicity Empire, the distance was a piece of cake to a Saint King. They could arrive with any space gate they ripped open. Luo Duo stabilized after flying for several thousand meters. He vomited another mouthful of blood, since he could not hold it in. Jianshen's punch was equivalent to the full-powered strike of a third heavenly layer Saint King. Although he had only withstood a small portion of it, it was still enough to become heavily injured. The imperial protectors of the Longqi Kingdom could not help but reveal different expressions when they saw how Luo Duo had been heavily injured by Jian Chun from just a few clashes. They all revealed extremely ugly expressions. Luo Duo was what their kingdom relied on the most. He was the pride of the kingdom, so if even he was not their opponent, the kingdom no longer possessed any more power to contend with the people of the Bloodsword sect. Jianchen hovered high up in the air as he stared coldly at Luo Duo. He coldly said as well, "Sir, if you only have that much strength, you might not be able to make the people of the Bloodsword sect stay behind forever today." Luo Duo was shocked with Jianchen's strength, but he maintained a sneer. "Sect Master of the Bloodsword sect, you are indeed very powerful. I am nowhere near your enemy, but the interesting parts will occur near the end." The space before Luo Duo began to twist violently as soon as he finished speaking, quickly forming a space gate. Immediately, two presences even more powerful than Luo Duo began to radiate from within. They surged out like two angered dragons, twisting and turning recklessly in the surroundings. They flooded the entire region. Before the two powerful presences, the air stopped moving, and so did the energy of the world. Even the invisible world force calmed down. Two white-robed, ruddy old men emerged from the space gate. Their eyes glowed like torches as they sharply glanced over Jian Chun before stopping on Luo Duo. Their expressions changed at the same time when they saw the horrible shape that Luo Duo was in. They took a step and silently appeared before him. One of them asked with a deep voice, "Luo Duo, are you fine? Who injured you like this?" Imperial Protector Fang Yan, Imperial Protector Taji. The one who injured me is the new sect master of the Bloodsword sect. I am not his opponent, so please redeem my honor for me, Imperial Protectors. Luo Duo's voice was extremely hoarse. Fang Yan patted Luo Duo's shoulder and said, "We're all one family, so why be so polite? Don't worry, I'll help you." He then looked at Jianchen's group and said, "May I ask who the new sect master of the Bloodsword sect is?" Although that was what he had said, his gaze focused on Jianchen. He had already determined that Luo Duo was injured by Jian Chun with where he was standing. Jianchen's expression remained the same. He clasped his hands indifferently and said, "I am the new sect master of the Bloodsword sect. Is there any areas you have a problem with, and you'd like to criticize?" Jianchen could already tell that the two Saint Kings that had come to support Luo Duo were of the 5th and 6th heavenly layer. They did not pose a threat to him. Fang Yan's expression sank slightly. He said, "I am not worthy of giving criticism, but not only has the sect leader trespassed in the territory of the Felicity Empire, you've even injured an imperial protector of our empire. If you don't give us an explanation for this matter, do we, the Felicity Empire, still have any dignity?" Jianchen's eyes immediately lit up when he heard that they were actually from the Felicity Kingdom. He said, "You're actually from the Felicity Kingdom, perfect. Is Bai Jian a part of your empire?" "He is indeed. Our empire just happens to have this person. May I ask about your relationship with him?" Fang Yan stared fixedly at Jianchen. "He's an enemy, someone who must be killed." Jianchen growled. As he spoke, a powerful killing intent radiated from his body. The two imperial protectors changed in expression when they heard what Jianchen had said. Taji took a step and advanced until he was only 100 meters away with an extremely sharp presence. He growled, "Sect Master of the Bloodsword sect, looks like you're purposefully trying to become enemies with our Felicity Empire. If that's the case, allow me, Taji, to witness your strength and to see if you're on Houston's level or not, to speak in such an arrogant fashion." Taji extended a finger, and the energy of the world in the surroundings immediately became abnormally energetic after it had just calmed down with their arrival. It gathered at the tip of his finger with unbelievable speed, condensing into an extremely powerful attack that shot towards Jianchen. Taji's strength was at the 6th heavenly layer of Saint King. He was stronger than Fang Yan. Jianchen could no longer deal with such a powerful attack as easily as he had dealt with Luo Duo. He immediately removed his Emperor armament from his space ring, directly stabbing out with lightning speed. A gray light shot from the tip of Jianchen's Emperor armament. It ripped the surrounding space with an aura of destruction as it shot towards Taji with great speed. The gray sword qi advanced with no hindrance, traveling through Taji's finger attack of world force, before continuing on towards Taji with no reduction in force. Taji's complexion changed. He had never thought that the new sect master would be so powerful. He immediately became much more cautious. At the same time, extremely powerful saint force surged wildly out of his body, quickly condensing into a long sword that was 3 fingers wide in his right hand. Afterwards he chopped out with lightning speed, shooting out a powerful and sharp sword qi, which collided with Jianchen's attack. Boom! A great sound rocked the area as the 2 sword qis collided. The powerful residual energy caused the surrounding space to tremble non-stop. Taji's sword qi disappeared mid-air, dispersing in the form of basic energy. The sword qi condensed from chaotic force remained fine, continuing towards Taji, and arriving before him in the blink of an eye. Taji's expression abruptly changed. It was already too late for him to dodge, so all he could do was hold his sword horizontal before him. A great boom exploded as soon as the chaotic force sword qi collided with Taji's saint weapon. Taji was knocked back uncontrollably. He flew for over 10 kilometers before stabilizing himself. He was in shock, completely shocked by the strength of the new sect master of the Bloodsword sect. Even with his strength as a Saint King at the 6th heavenly layer, he struggled against a single sword qi from him, which filled him with disbelief. The new sect master was just too strong. Imperial Protector Taji's actually been knocked back by a single sword qi from the new sect master. This is impossible. Have I seen wrong? Imperial Protector Taji is a 6th heavenly layer Saint King. Luo Duo stared at Taji in disbelief as his eyes bulged. His heart began to churn. Emperor armament. It's actually an Emperor armament. Fang Yin cried out. He stared unblinkingly at the weapon in Jianchen's hand as deep envy and shock leaked through his eyes. Taji wielded his sword with his right hand and fused with the surrounding space. He arrived beside Fang Yin over 10 kilometers away with a single step and stared at Jianchen's Emperor armament in interest. Only after a while did he sigh in surprise. It really is an Emperor armament. The power of Emperor armaments really are just too powerful. The reason the sect master can knock me back with a single attack is all because of the Emperor armament. If you didn't have it, you definitely would not be my opponent. Fang Yan's eyes grew cold and he said, Taji, since we're not the sect master's opponents on our own, let's work together. We cannot let the prestige of the Felicity Empire fall here no matter what. Sure. Taji agreed without any extra thought. A surging presence began to radiate from him as he charged at Jianchen with Fang Yin at the same time. Jianchen's gaze grew cold as well. He said, I've held back with the previous attack, but since you have no idea what you should and shouldn't do, it's no longer my fault. Jianchen's presence suddenly changed as soon as he finished speaking. In that moment, he seemed to have become a peerless divine sword. Extremely sharp sword qi radiated from him all over, and his arm holding the Emperor armament suddenly shook. He chopped out mercilessly, producing a sword qi that ripped through space as it shot at Fang Yin. The strike was equivalent to the full-powered attack from a Saint King of the 7th heavenly layer. Wherever it passed, space would rip, and from afar, it seemed like a streak of black light shooting through the sky. After that, Jianchen charged up with his sword. He continued towards the more powerful Taji, as his Emperor armament glowed with a blinding dark light. He stabbed out 3 times with a devastating aura. The 3 strikes were extremely fast. Each and every one of them left behind a blur, and it seemed like he had struck out 3 times all at the same time. Fang Yin was only a Saint King at the 5th heavenly layer, So how could he resist a sword chi from Jianshun, who was equal to a 7th heavenly layer Saint King? He was heavily injured by the attack. The sword chi passed through his chest, leaving behind a clear hole. Taji became extremely stern-faced as he dealt with the 3 strikes from Jianshun. He used everything he had as a 6th heavenly layer Saint King, pouring everything into resisting Jianshun's 3 attacks. However, due to their difference in strength, Taji only managed to block 2 of the attacks. The 3rd strike pierced his heart, causing his entire body to be impaled by the sword. Bam! Jianshun kicked Taji's chest along the way, and knocked him far away as he vomited blood. In the blink of an eye, all the supporting imperial protectors of the Felicity Kingdom had been heavily injured by Jianshun. No, impossible! Luo Duo and the 4 imperial protectors of the Longqi Kingdom all paled when they saw what had happened. Fear began to quickly rise in their hearts. Chapter 1026. The Great Divination Technique. Taji and Fang Yan hovered in the air with pale faces. Residual blood remained on the corner of their lips while their snow-white robes had been dyed red with blood. They seemed to be extremely miserable. Jianshun did not kill Taji and Fang Yan. The Tianyuan continent would be facing a disaster in the near future. Taji and Fang Yan were 5th and 6th heavenly layer Saint Kings, so they would be a part of the major force that would repel the invasion from the world of Forsaken Saints. The 2 of you are nowhere near my opponent. Go. You are not to interfere with any matters of the Bloodsword sect today. Otherwise, you will be taking the Bloodsword sect on as an enemy, Jianshun said as he put the Emperor armament away. Taji and Fang Yan looked at each other. They were both troubled, and they glanced at Luo Duo, who was also heavily injured. They produced a soft sigh and said nothing else, directly ripping open a space gate and leaving through it. The both of them knew that Jianshun possessed the ability to kill them from the battle before, but he showed mercy in the end. This was why they did not throw down any threats before leaving. Taji and Fang Yan left together, returning to the Felicity Empire. Luo Duo lost his greatest insurance with their departure, so his face also became bleak. However, a gleam of light flickered through his eyes very quickly, and without any hesitation, he ripped open the surrounding space to create a space gate. However, before it had completely formed, Jianshun suddenly appeared beside him, and he punched at the gate. He caused space to shake violently, forcefully preventing the space gate's formation. You have extremely strong killing intent for the Bloodsword sect. If I let you go today, you will definitely cause great harm to the Bloodsword sect once you become powerful, so you better stay behind today. Jianshun's presence surged as he coldly stared at Luo Duo. Afterwards, he punched Luo Duo's chest, causing it to cave in completely. His ribs and organs turned to mush. Mouthfuls of blood spurted from Luo Duo. He endured his injuries and icily stared at Jianshun. He called out, "I am an imperial protector of the Felicity Empire. If you kill me, the Felicity Empire will definitely flatten your Bloodsword sect. Houston will be passing away soon. He cannot protect the Bloodsword sect." Jianshun's face immediately sank with that. Killing intent surged in his eyes as he growled, "You're looking to die for disrespecting Uncle Xiao." Jianshun radiated with a terrifying killing intent as he pursued Luo Duo. A faint layer of chaotic force covered the surface of his fist as he struck Luo Duo's head. Luo Duo's head exploded with Jianshun's angry punch. His soul was wiped out before it could even flee. Luo Duo had never thought that he had sped up his own death, instead of saving his life, with what he had just said even as he died. Imperial Protector Luo Duo. The 4 Imperial Protectors of the Longqi Kingdom all witnessed Luo Duo's death. They all stared wide-eyed, torn between grief. Jianshun glanced at the Imperial Protectors torn between sadness and anger. Perhaps due to the fact that his increase in strength affected his mind, he did not bother to deal with the 4 saint rulers of the Longqi Kingdom. That was, of course, given that there was no irresolvable disagreements between them. Jianshun did not look at the saint rulers again, as flew towards the imperial palace. He had already locked onto Old Man Situ's and Moting's presence. The 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect did not bother with the imperial protectors when they saw how Jianshun did not try make things difficult for them. One of them removed Luo Duo's space ring from his finger, before following Jian Chen toward a desolate area within the imperial palace. Currently, Old Man Situ and Mating leaned against the door in fear, peeping through a tiny slit to see the situation outside. They gently trembled as their lips jittered. They were filled with deep fear. The two of them had witnessed the battle in the sky as they hid. They were naturally familiar with Jian Chen's appearance, since they had chased him down in the City of God before. They had just witnessed Jian Chen heavily injure 2 Saint Kings consecutively, as well as kill one without any difficulties. They were deeply astounded by his strength, struggling to accept it all as true. SS Situ DD. Do you think that he's actually Jian Chen? Old Man Mating said through a communication technique. His teeth loudly chattered, producing an audible sound. We're done this time. How did Jian Chen's strength suddenly become so great? I clearly remember that he was not as strong as the two of us when we first met him in the City of God. Old Man Situ's face had completely drained of blood. In that moment, deep fear had replaced all his other emotions. Suddenly, Old Man Mating's expression changed. He cried out, "Shit, they're heading in our direction. How did I forget? The experts of the Bloodsword sect have methods to find us. Run!" The two old men no longer bothered to conceal their presences. They shot through the roof, fleeing into the distance with their greatest speed. Jian Chen's killing intent immediately began to explode through his attempts to suppress it when he saw the murderers of his parents. His killing intent began to permeate the surroundings, causing the temperature to plummet. He yelled out, "Do you really think you can flee before me?" Jian Chen's voice was extremely loud and clear. It suddenly shook the sky like a clap of thunder. It was deafening. Old Man Situ and Mating froze. They immediately began to tremble from Jian Chen's voice and unconsciously stopped. They were filled with fear. Before Saint Kings, they could not even flee with their current strength. Jian Chen ran over from afar with a dark face. A tremendous presence had already locked onto the two old men, making them feel like a mountain currently sat on them. They even struggled to breath. Suddenly, the two old men fell to their knees at the same time. They constantly bowed to Jian Chen as they begged, "Senior Jian Chen, please let us go. This matter really has nothing to do with us. It was all secretly organized by the Tiger King of the Gilligan clan. If we didn't listen to him, he would have killed us. Senior Jian Chen, the prime culprit is not us but the Tiger King. We're just a chess piece in the Tiger King's hands." "Yeah, Senior Jian Chen, we're just a chess piece in the Tiger King's hands. We didn't have a choice either. It's useless even if you kill us, so please forgive us as the bigger person. If you want revenge, go find the Tiger King. He's your true enemy." Old Man Mating copied Old Man Situ by loudly pleading. He acted like he was wronged. He sounded as pitiful as he needed to be. Jian Chen coldly stared at the two old men. His killing intent increased instead of reducing, and he slowly drew the Emperor armament from his space ring. Jian Chen could not let the two murderers of his parents all those years ago die so easily. The two old men became even more frightened when Jian Chen drew his Emperor armament. With a flurry of hands, they pulled thing after thing out of their space rings. "Senior Jian Chen, if you let us go, we will give you everything in our possession. These Class 7 monster cores, these vast quantities of purple coins, and this wondrous great divination technique will all belong to you." Yeah. Senior Jian Chen, the great divination technique is an ancient divine book. The two of us obtained it by risking our lives in an extremely dangerous place. The value of this book far exceeds the lives of us two old men. We will use it to exchange for our lives. Senior Jian Chen won't be losing anything in this deal. The two old men both held part of a booklet in their hands. They raised their respective parts high above their heads in a courteous manner. The two booklets seemed to belong together, but had been separated. "Nothing you say will work. I must kill you today." Jian Chen emphasized each syllable as he spoke. His tone was icy cold, and as soon as he finished speaking, he immediately stabbed out. His arm shook, and the Emperor armament turned into a wall of blurs that enveloped the two old men. He stabbed out countless times in a short instance. Each stroke moved at an unbelievable speed. The blurs stacked upon each other, filling up the space in a dense fashion. It was impossible to tell whether a blur was actually the sword, or just a fake. Arg! The two old men miserably shrieked. Blood and flesh scattered into the space filled with the blurs, turning the air into a bloody mist which drifted through the sky. The air around them was dyed red. The two old men constantly shrieked, growing more and more miserable as the pain became more and more agonizing. It was chilling. A while later, Jianchen finally stopped. Other than their heads, the two old men had reduced to red skeletons from the neck below. They had been carved alive with no flesh left. Even their organs had completely disappeared. The saint weapons within their dantians had been destroyed by Jianchen. Currently, the two of them floated in the air completely dependent on Jianchen's ability to freeze space, or they would have fallen. Jianchen, if you want to kill, then kill. Why torture us like this? Old man Sita angrily roared with his hoarse voice. He could not endure the torture. It was not something humans could endure. It won't be that easy if you want me to kill you in a single stroke. I will repay the debt of blood with interest from all those years ago. I will carve you into pieces and tear you into shreds. Jianchen gnashed his teeth. Afterwards, his emperor armament began to move once more, slowly carving away their bones. Jianchen tortured the two old men for 4 whole hours. When only their heads were left, he wiped out their souls, allowing them to disperse permanently. Jianchen slowly put the emperor armament away, and raised his head to look at the blue sky. After that he deeply exhaled. Only now were all the murderers of his parents dead. He had finally completed this journey of revenge for his parents. Chapter 1027. A book of a way. Although the two old men had died in such a cruel fashion, it was far from enough to make up for the pain they had brought to Jianchen when they killed his parents. Jianchen knew that if the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect had not arrived in time, perhaps the entire clan would have been wiped out. The strong eat the weak. This was the law of survival in this world. With nothing to be discussed or debated, strength was the greatest decider of authority. Rui Jin, He Yu, and Hong Lian stood silently behind Jianchen with the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect. Their expressions remained the same. The bloodshed they had once experienced was nowhere near anything Jianchen could imagine. They had seen everything, so the scene before them could be described as just too common to them. A long while later, Jianchen slightly calmed down. He lowered his head to look at the ground before quickly descending to the ground. The great divination technique lay quietly on the ground, since it had fallen from the hands of the two old men. Its old, yellowed pages gently flipped in the breeze, revealing a large face of tiny characters. With a gesture, the parts of the book were immediately affected by an invisible force, as they slowly flew into Jianchen's hands. Jianchen examined the 2 booklets, and discovered that they were several pages made out of an unknown material bound together by golden thread. The pages were extremely pliable, yet extremely difficult to destroy. They possessed marks left behind by time, so no one knew just how long they had existed. The 2 booklets really did form one book, but it had been separated by the 2 old men by untying the golden thread. They each carried an incomplete portion of it, and only when they were put together did they form the complete book. Just what is this book to be described in such a great fashion by 2 saint rulers? Jianchen mumbled before putting the 2 booklets together. He flipped to the first page and began reading. Jianchen's eyes gradually lit up as he flipped through the pages. His calm heart also began to beat heavily. He became slightly excited before involuntarily sighing in shock in the end. This really is a divine book. It's so wondrous. The great divination technique was not some powerful battle skill or cultivation manual, but an extremely wondrous book. The reason why it was so wondrous was because it could forecast the future and penetrate the supreme laws of the world, allowing the user to see the end. It could also help the user find the person the user was looking for, or the answer the user wanted to know. It's too wondrous. It's just too wondrous. I never thought that there would be such a wonderful book in the world. This is unbelievable, Jianchen praised. He was very surprised. The great divination technique was basically heaven-defying. As soon as someone mastered the technique, nothing could trap them since they knew everything. They could pierce through the multiple obstructions and illusions to see the truth. No scheme would work against someone who mastered it. They would even be able to see through a person's past and future incarnations. The great divination technique was recorded in words at the front, and towards the end, it became a mixture of simple-looking yet complicated lines and pictures. Jian Chen's soul suddenly shook when he saw the lines and pictures, and a weird feeling filled his head at that moment. The lines and images seemed to fuse with the surroundings, combining with nature. They seemed simple, yet they hid an infinite number of mysteries. They were profound. The great divination technique is mystical, but it's extremely difficult to learn. To forecast the future would need an extremely deep comprehension of it, Jian Chen thought. He could already understand how profound it was from the text at the beginning. A book of a way. It's actually a book of a way. Suddenly, the sword spirits' voices rang out in Jian Chen's head. Their voices were filled with amazement, as if something extremely unexpected had happened. A book of a way. Ziying Qing Sua, what's a book of a way? Jian Chen immediately communicated with the sword spirits due to his curiosity. Master, a book of a way is a book that describes a way. It is referred to differently in different places, and it's called the laws of the world here, Qing Sua explained. Does that mean that the lines and images recorded near the end of the book are laws? Jian Chen was rather surprised. Correct, Master. There are many ways out there. Different people can record different ways with different methods, such as the book in your hand. The authors completely recorded a way using lines and images. It seems simple, but it's extremely difficult to comprehend. However, the book is a recording of the rarely seen way of divination. In the world we originally came from, there were extremely few people who comprehended the way of divination. Even describing it as rare as a phoenix's feather would be too much, because the way of divination is just too hard to comprehend, and it's not offensive in nature, so very few people take that route. The people who do take that route are extremely weak in battle. Even if they comprehend it to the utmost peak, they can't defeat people at a cultivation level lower than them. It's a route nowhere near the beaten path, Ziying explained. Jian Chen's excitement immediately disappeared with that. He sank into his thoughts. All the joy he had from obtaining the technique completely disappeared. Ziying, Qing Sua, are you saying that I shouldn't comprehend the details of the great divination technique? Jian Chen asked after some thought. Master, the great divination technique is indeed useless to other people, since comprehending the way of divination in a world filled with battle would just be seeking death. Once people start fighting, anyone who comprehended this way would definitely be at a disadvantage. They will die very easily to their opponents. However, Master does not walk a path of cultivation similar to ordinary people. So Master still needs to comprehend the way of divination, said Ziying. I need to comprehend it? Why? Jian Chen asked in confusion. Master, the 18 layers of the chaotic body are only a way for Ziying and me to get you to have a deeper understanding of how the chaotic body is divided. Actually, the chaotic body is divided into 4 major levels in our original world: minor achievement, partial achievement, major achievement, and great perfection. The first 6 layers are part of the minor achievement. The 7th layer to the 12th layer is part of the partial achievement. The 13th layer to the 18th layer is part of the major achievement. Great perfection is for those who have surpassed the 18 layers, and it is the highest level of the chaotic body. However, no one has reached it before. Does that mean that my chaotic body is only halfway through the minor achievement, and that I'm still quite far from the peak of minor achievement? Jian Chen thought. Master, the minor achievement of the chaotic body only requires energy to cultivate, but once you reach partial achievement, you need to comprehend ways, or laws of the world, to continue your increase in strength. As for great perfection of the chaotic body, it requires the comprehension of 3,000 great ways. Only by making the 3,000 great ways a source can someone reach great perfection and refine true chaotic force. As a result, Master needs to comprehend the way of divination, Ziying explained. Jian Chen finally felt a little better. He mumbled inside, looks like I can't benefit from the great divination technique that I just obtained at all right now. The great perfection of the chaotic body is just too far away from me right now, so I'll consider it in the future. Great perfection was a level that surpassed the 18 layers. With Jianshen's current level at the 3rd layer, he dared not to hold wild wishes for it. After communicating with the sword spirit, Jianshen placed the great divination technique into his space ring. Although the fact that the technique contained the method to know everything in the world, and it did tempt him, Jianshen also knew that reaching a high level of comprehension of the technique would be extremely difficult. It would take up an extremely great amount of time, yet he had not even dealt with the matters at hand, so right now was not the time to comprehend. Chapter 1028. The ancestral Emperor Jianshen calmed down and removed the space rings from the 2 old men before rejoining Ruijin and the others in the air. He said, "Senior Ruijin, I want to go to the Felicity Empire next. Please create a space gate for me." Ruijin did not turn down Jianshen's request, and instead agreed to it without any hesitation. "I just happen to have looked into the territories of the 3 great empires, so I know their precise locations." With that, Ruijin extended a finger and swung it casually. The space ripped open, quickly forming a space gate. Jianshen stared unblinkingly at Ruijin's ordinary and simple action. His eyes shined with interest as he seemed to be deep in thought. He already knew that he would not be able to undergo breakthroughs as easily as before once he reached partial achievement, and that every layer would require the comprehension of the laws of the world. As a result, he paid close attention to how Ruijin ripped open space. Not only does Senior Ruijin's action of ripping open space contain his comprehension of the laws of space, it also possesses the control of power. Space is a law while energy also has its own way. Looks like I've already begun to interact with the laws when I was a saint ruler, except that it was just a smattering of it, Jianshen mumbled inside. Once I deal with the matters on hand, I'll immediately go to Mercenary City and get Xiaoling to invoke the mysteries of the world for me to comprehend. I'll work hard on increasing my strength. Jianshen and the others, including the 4 protectors, immediately stepped through the space gate and disappeared from the air above the Longqi kingdom as soon as it had formed. Yu had already been sent into the artifact space when Jianshen fought with the Saint Kings before. The Felicity Empire was one of the 3 great empires of the continent. It possessed a lengthy history and had 2 of the 7 capital cities of the continent, the City of the Heavenly Spirits and Thunder City. The City of the Heavenly Spirits was the imperial capital of the empire, where the imperial palace was located. As the imperial capital of the Felicity Empire, the prosperity of the City of Heavenly Spirits was naturally self-evident. Countless organizations consisting of large and small clans filled every space within the city walls. Experts gathered and were as common as clouds. However, there was one exception. There was a huge mixture of people within the city walls of the imperial capital, but it was governed very well, so there were extremely few cases of violence. Jianshen's group appeared in the air above the city after passing through the spatial gate. They looked down at the land below them, and with a rough scan, they found where the imperial palace was. They immediately flew in that direction. Currently, the pale-faced Fang Yan and Taji, who had just come back from the Longqi kingdom, sat on cushions as they meditated in a majestic hall within the palace. Before them sat a middle-aged man in a set of luxurious gilded robes. His face was dark as he angrily glared at Fang Yan and Taji. The man was extremely handsome, and the presence of a ruler radiated from him. He was filled with prestige. He was an imperial protector of the Felicity Empire as well, and he was stronger than Fang Yan and Taji. He was at the peak of the 7th heavenly layer, as well as an emperor, who had abdicated several years ago. He was a member of the imperial family. The Bloodsword sect is just too arrogant for injuring the imperial protectors of my Felicity Empire. How dare they? And I can feel that Imperial Protector Luo Duo's presence has disappeared. He must have suffered a mishap. The Bloodsword sect is going too far. Do they really think that they can trample all over the dignity of the Empire, just because they have Houston supporting them? The middle-aged man growled unhappily. The Felicity Empire was one of the three great empires of the continent, and even among ancient clans, there were not many that could rival them. As a result, they treated their dignity with more importance than anything else. The Bloodsword sect had heavily injured two of their imperial protectors, regardless of the consequences, and even killed one. It was not something that the Felicity Empire could bear with. Saint Kings were the central force of the empire, so Luo Duo's death was an extremely heavy loss. Even with the entire empire in perspective, they could count the number of Saint Kings with their fingers. So Saint Kings were not something they could obtain just because they wanted to. The middle-aged man immediately rose up from his cushion, as icy cold light flickered in his eyes. He growled, "Houston actually dares to offend my Felicity Empire like this right before he's about to pass away. Looks like he's trying to do something big before he dies. If that's the case, we'll strike first and wipe out his sect." Dealing with the Bloodsword sect with the strength of our empire is naturally not a problem. But how do we deal with Houston? And other than Houston, there's a new sect leader. He's extremely powerful when he wields an emperor armament, and definitely has the capacity to fight you, Taji said with a deep voice. "I'll keep the new sect master busy. We can get the ancestral emperor to deal with Houston." Although the ancestral emperor's slightly weaker than Houston, Zarkayan of the Zar clan, and Hao Wu from the Holy Empire still owe me a favor. I'll go to the Holy Empire this instance to find them, so they can assist the ancestral emperor. I think the three of them should be more enough to deal with Houston, the middle-aged man said. However, his eyes suddenly froze when he finished speaking, and he quickly raised his head. Very quickly, Taji and Fang Yin sensed it as well. They looked into the distance, and their expressions immediately became ugly. It's the new sect master of the Bloodsword sect. He's actually come to our Felicity Empire. With that, a sharp light flashed across the middle-aged man's eyes and he snorted. Perfect. New sect master, I'd like to see what you want to do today. With that, the middle-aged man strode towards the outside. You cannot go. At this moment, an old voice boomed in the hall. It was filled with an absolute prestige that could not be denied. The middle-aged man came to a stop and turned around. He saw that a sage-like old man had appeared on the highest throne within the hall at some point. The man's expression slightly changed, becoming filled with respect. He bowed to the old man with Taji and Fang Yin. I greet the ancestral emperor. The old man was the ancestral emperor of the Felicity Empire. He was already over 5,000 years of age, and was the oldest member of the imperial family. The ancestral emperor within the royal family of the empire did not refer to the founding emperor, but the oldest and most powerful past emperor. There would always be one, just one. You all stay here and go nowhere. Do not interfere with the matter outside, the ancestral emperor nonchalantly commanded. However, he was looking outside. His profound gaze seemed to be able to look through the various structures and obstructions to see Jian Chen's group. Jian Chen and the others flew toward the imperial palace of the empire, landing on a roof of a hall. Who has come? Why do you not come through the main entrance? Do you not know the rules of the empire? The four protectors of the Bloodsword sect radiated with baleful force, so it was extremely hard for them to conceal themselves. As soon as Jian Chen's group landed, a loud call rang from the palace. Several saint rulers began to radiate with tremendous presences, as they threateningly flew to where Jian Chen and the others were, encircling them. At the same time, all the guards of the palaces moved, surging out in all directions like a tide. They formed a sea of people very soon, surrounding the area where Jian Chen and the others stood. A saint ruler glanced past the four protectors of the Bloodsword sect and growled, "Are you from the Bloodsword sect?" The four protectors said nothing, as if they had not heard the question at all. Jian Chen scanned the saint rulers coldly with an expressionless face and icily asked, "Where is Bai Jian? Come up quickly for your death." Although Jian Chen spoke very softly, it resounded throughout the entire imperial palace. Immediately, another 20-odd saint ruler presences began to radiate from various places of the palace. They all quickly approached Jian Chen's group, joining the encirclement. All of them seemed to carry ill intentions. Without a doubt, what Jian Chen had said had expressed the fact that he had come to the imperial palace of the Felicity Empire to make trouble. They were enemies. Who are you to come make trouble for the imperial palace? Do you think that you have lived too long so you want to die earlier? Brat, you're the first one to come make trouble at the imperial palace in recent years. If you're sensible, tie yourself up and go plead for forgiveness from the emperor. He might spare your life. The saint rulers around Jianshan all called out. Although they knew that Jianshan's group was not easy to be trifled with, they were in the imperial palace of the empire. It was their territory, and they had quite a few imperial protectors inside. Jianshan's face slightly sank. I have no intentions of becoming your enemies. I have only come with intention of killing Bai Jian. Will you be handing him over or not? How dare you look down on the dignity of the empire? It doesn't matter who you are. You have committed unforgivable crimes. Let's capture these troublemakers and pass them to the emperor for judgment, a saint ruler called out. He was a 9th heavenly layer saint ruler, and seemed to be extremely prestigious among the group of people. The other saint rulers all began moving after he spoke. Stop! At this moment, an old voice boomed from the depths of the imperial palace, though the owner of the voice was not present. It was filled with absolute prestige and could not be denied. The saint rulers that had gathered around Jianshan immediately stopped. They gave a deep, polite bow to the depths of the palace. They did not know who exactly the speaker was, but they were certain that it was at least an imperial protector. Brother, my Felicity Empire has no ill will with you. May I ask why have you come to make trouble? The old voice rang out once again. It was the ancestral emperor. A prince of your empire, Bai Jian, gathered several millions of mercenaries from many mercenary groups to take my city. Say, is this ill will? Jianshan replied with a deep voice. He felt no fear at all. So brother has come for that matter. From today on, Bai Jian will no longer be a member of the Felicity Empire. His life or death will have nothing to do with the empire. I hope we can clean the slate between us like that. How do you feel about that? The ancestral emperor's tone was extremely amiable, and without any hostility, as if he was trying to negotiate. Chapter 1029. Another visit to the city of God. All the saint rulers around Jianshan became stupefied when they heard what the ancestral emperor had said. At that moment, they struggled to believe what they had heard, actually doubting whether their ears had a problem or not. The Felicity Empire was a powerful empire that had existed on the continent for countless years. It was extremely powerful. Its dignity was almost holy and could not be impinged upon. Anyone who dared to enter the empire in an attempt to cause trouble would be dealt with mercilessly, teaching that person a severe lesson. They had never been so flexible before, which was why everyone refused to believe what they heard. The current emperor appeared outside a beautiful palace in dragon robes and a golden violet crown. He stared at Jianshan's group as a large group of experts protected him. Your Majesty, just what is with the imperial protector today? Why is he negotiating with a troublemaker, and even dismissing Prince Bai Jian of his position? He's an extremely talented saint ruler. Not only has he comprehended a saint-tier battle skill many saint kings have failed to grasp, he will definitely become a saint king in the future as well. Are we really supposed to just abandon such a genius? A valiant golden-armored, middle-aged man asked in confusion beside the emperor. The way the empire was treating its enemy today did not seem like what it would usually do. The emperor stared into the depths of the palace as respect filled his face. He mumbled, "It's the voice of the ancestral emperor. The ancestral emperor must have his reasons for doing this." What? It's the ancestral emperor? The armored man's face changed and immediately became courteous as well. Even the experts around the emperor reacted in similar fashions. Respect filled their faces, and even a sliver of excitement appeared for some. The ancestral emperor possessed a supreme status within the Felicity Emperor. Although he had abdicated several years ago, every single sentence from him was equivalent to an imperial edict. Not only could he make any decision for the entire empire, he could even dismiss the current emperor or any official in the government. However, the ancestral emperor always stayed in the forbidden grounds near the back of the palace in cultivation, almost never interfering with anything. He would rarely appear even over the span of several hundred years, and there were rarely any people who had the right to personally visit him. All the people only heard of the story of his existence, which was why so many people became so shocked when they learned that the old voice from the depths of the palace belonged to the ancestral emperor. Jianchen smiled with what the ancestral emperor had said. He clasped his hands to the depths and loudly said, "Senior truly is a decisive person." Since Bai Jian is no longer a member of the Felicity Empire, I naturally will have no problems with the empire. However, please hand over Bai Jian to me. Brother, Bai Jian is not in the imperial palace right now. If you want to find him, you might as well go to the Holy Empire. You can find him there, said the ancestral emperor. The Holy Empire, Jianchen mumbled. He had not thought that Bai Jian had actually run off to the Holy Emperor, but he immediately followed up with, "The Holy Empire is so big, finding someone would be almost impossible. May I ask Senior of the precise location?" "The Tsar family in the City of God," replied the ancestral emperor. A gleam of light immediately flashed across Jianchen's eyes when he heard that. He thought back to the moment when he had faced enemies from everywhere, due to the Tsar family, which caused his face to slightly sink. "Senior, I thank you for telling me. Farewell." Jianchen clasped his fists at the depths of the palace, before leaving with Rui Jin and the others. "Brother, our Felicity Empire wishes to be eternal friends with you. If brother has some time in the future, you are welcome to come visit the empire." The ancestral emperor's voice rang out once more. The voice traveled very far, landing clearly in Jianchen's ears. Jianchen's group traveled far from the imperial palace, before leaving through a space gate Rui Jin created. They directly made their way to the Holy Empire. A middle-aged man looked at the seated ancestral emperor in confusion, within a beautiful hall, after Jianchen had left. He asked, "Ancestral Emperor, why must we speak in such a humble manner to them? Do we really fear the mere Bloodsword sect with our strength? As long as we work with Zarkayun and Hao Wu, wiping out the Bloodsword sect would be easy." The ancestral emperor gently sighed with that. It's indeed possible to wipe out the Bloodsword sect with the Felicity Empire's strength, but I never thought that it would be him who had become the sect master. It really is a surprise. The ancestral emperor suddenly became stern and stared fixedly at the three people before him. He said, "Remember, the three of you, never have any conflicts with the Bloodsword sect in the future. If you come across anyone from there, you must treat them politely, and you must not offend them. Do you understand?" Ancestral Emperor, just who is the new sect master to make someone as great as you be so cautious? The middle-aged man was curious. He's someone we can't offend. In all of recent history, he's the only one who dared to provoke the 10 Protector clans, while the Protector clans could not do anything to him. At the same time, he's a person who dares to swagger recklessly throughout the entire continent after offending the only human Saint Emperor and 2 Saint Emperors from the Beast God continent. With that, the ancestral emperor stared deeply at the three of them. "I think you should know who he is." The 3 Saint Kings in the hall became completely stunned with that. They all paled. Only now did they finally know who the person they had offended was. They had never seen Jianchen, but his name was like a thunderclap to them. Virtually no expert of the continent did not know the name Jianchen. However, only a very few number of people had seen his appearance. In the City of God, Bai Jian wore luxurious robes with gold linings, as he conversed at ease with the Grand Elder of the Tsar family in a hall. He was smiling and possessed quite a striking demeanor. However, no one knew that he was extremely nervous despite his composed exterior. He had learned that Jianchen had returned mightily several days ago, and had taken back Flame City with lightning speed, and claimed his father's life. He became filled with deep fear because of this. He knew Jianchen would come looking for him, and he would not be forgiven. Before, he had visited the ancestral emperor of the Felicity Emperor to request for him to deal with Jianchen. However, he was turned down, which was why he had come to the Tsar family in the Holy Empire. He wanted to find experts to deal with Jianchen. "Grand Elder, I've already stayed here for several days. May I ask if the esteemed senior Zarkayun is willing to meet with Junior?" Junior has important matters to inform Senior of. Bai Jian could no longer bear with it anymore, asking the Grand Elder again. The Grand Elder was a 9th heavenly layer saint ruler. He was stronger than Bai Jian, and belonged to the Tsar family of the 3 great clans. But Bai Jian was the most talented prince, acknowledged by the public, of the 9 princes in the Felicity Empire. He also knew a saint-tier battle skill, so he treated Bai Jian extremely politely and courteously. Please do not worry, Prince Bai Jian. I have already passed on your request to the ancestor. If ancestor wishes to see you, she will naturally send out the word, so please wait a few more days, smiled the Grand Elder. Bai Jian's expression took an ugly turn. He had already waited here for several days, and if it were to continue like this, he would not be able to see the ancestor even after several months. Suddenly, an idea flashed through Bai Jian's head. He clasped his hands. Grand Elder, please pass this message on to Senior Zarkayun. Bai Jian is close with the heavenly enchantress, and has learned of some matters of the past from her. This includes the intense love that Senior Hao Wu and Zarkayun once had. Junior has come this time to offer up a plan that can eliminate the estrangement between the 2 seniors and get the 2 back on good terms. The Grand Elder's eyes froze when he heard that, and he immediately became stern. He stared fixedly at Bai Jian. Prince Bai Jian, is that true? If you trick the ancestor, the consequences will be extremely severe. It is completely true, Bai Jian swore. Bring him to me. The cold voice of a female rang through the hall as soon as Bai Jian finished speaking. However, it was impossible to discern its origin. The Grand Elders hurriedly put down the teacup in his hand and stood up. He politely said, Yes, ancestor. A hall that glimmered with violet light existed in a huge cavern below the estate of the Tsar family. Bai Jian entered the deep underground, through a tunnel under the Grand Elder's lead. He directly entered a palace, and stopped before a tightly closed room of seclusion. Ancestor, I have brought Bai Jian under your orders, the Grand Elder courteously informed her. Bai Jian stays. You can go. A cold woman's voice rang from the room. It was completely emotionless. Yes, ancestor, the Grand Elder politely replied before immediately leaving. Bai Jian greets the esteemed Senior Zarkayun. Bai Jian became polite as he stood outside the room, bowing deeply. Bai Jian, you say you have a method to mend my relationship with Hao Wu. Yes, Bai Jian indeed has a method to mend the relationship. Senior Zarkayun is welcome to try it, Bai Jian cautiously answered. He was at his wit's end. Speak. What is the method? Zarkayun's voice rang out of the room again. This time, a sliver of urgency was present. Just as Bai Jian wanted to speak, a tremendous presence suddenly appeared outside. It enveloped the entire city of God, such that even Bai Jian, who was underground, could clearly feel it. On the surface, a space gate silently opened in the air. Jian Chun and the others emerged from it, levitating high up in the sky. Chapter 1030. Zarkayun floating above the city of God. Jian Chun glanced past the slightly familiar city. He could not help but think back to all the things that had happened when he was last here, revealing a sliver of reminiscence. 8 clans of the city of God, the Tsar family, Jian Chun have returned. Back then, you sent all those experts to attack me, almost claiming my life. Today, I will look down on your city, Jian Chun said with a deep voice. His eyes became icy as he spoke, and a tremendous presence began to radiate from him. It enveloped the entire city, and within it was his undisguised battle intent. Many years ago, Jian Chun still needed to move around the city of God cautiously despite his extraordinary strength. There were many experts he could not afford to offend, but today, he could move brazenly about the city, publicly challenging the authority of a capital of the continent. Jian Chun's presence alarmed all the people in the city. Everyone could feel it clearly, regardless of their strength, and those weaker felt like a huge boulder pressed down on their chests. They struggled to even breathe. What a great presence! Who is the owner of this presence? Are they challenging the city? Various voices rang out around the city, while the empty streets became filled with people very quickly. In a moment, everyone surged out of their houses, and some people even looked at the sky as they stood on their roofs. All the ancestors of the 8 clans opened their eyes at the same time and stared outside in shock from their places of seclusion. Without the slightest hesitation, they stopped their cultivation and rose up, heading over with their greatest speed. The president of the Radiant Saint Master Union sat on his bed in a luxurious room at the highest, most central part of the castle-like union. Suddenly, he snapped his eyes open when the great presence surged in from outside. He immediately glanced in the direction of the presence through the window and furrowed his eyebrows. He mumbled with a deep voice, "What powerful presence! The owner must be at least a Saint King, and there's a great battle intent sandwiched in between. The battle intent's so great that very few people can be in possession of it, even with the whole continent in perspective. Odd, who is this person? He's clearly challenging the Tsar family by releasing his battle intent so recklessly. But I don't seem to remember the Tsar family offending such a great expert before." Doubt filled his mind. At this moment, the door was pushed open. The Grand Elder of the Union sternly walked in from outside and began speaking as soon as he came in. The person must have come to find trouble with the Tsar family. They're not weak. President, we might as well go and have a look. Let's hope they heavily injure the Tsar family and reduce the pressure the Union is facing. The president closely sensed the presence and seemed to be in deep thought. A sliver of suspicion gradually appeared on his face. Weird. Grand Elder, why do I feel that this presence is somewhat familiar? As if I have met this person somewhere before. But out of all the impressions of Saint Kings I've come in contact with, there doesn't seem to be someone who matches up to this presence. It really is odd. Just who is this person? The Grand Elder's expression changed with that. A sliver of curiosity appeared on his face as he said, "Since you've mentioned it, I also feel somewhat familiar with this presence, but I can't think of who it is. President, since we can't tell who it is, why don't we go together to see just who this person is?" Afterwards, the president and Grand Elder left the union together with multiple saint rulers. They shot off in the direction of the presence with lightning-like speed. An extremely ordinary-looking old man carefully wiped the tables and the single bookshelf in the Radiant Saint Tower of the Union. Suddenly, the old man paused and a gleam of light immediately exploded in his eyes. He mumbled, "Looks like the city of God is going to get lively again. I wonder which expert the Tsar family has offended." With that, the old man disappeared. He had turned into a faint blur, leaving the tower with lightning speed as he flew to the presence. Jianchen and the others floated silently several thousand meters in the air above the Tsar family. Soon afterwards, several tremendous presences appeared in the surroundings. They traveled extremely quick, arriving around Jianchen in just a few seconds. They surrounded him 100 meters away. The saint rulers were the ancestors of the 8 clans. They were all stern, staring at Jianchen in caution. None of them dared to create a disturbance, as they could all tell that the young man before them was a Saint King from his presence alone. They could not afford to provoke him. "May I inquire of the senior's great name, and exactly what has caused a misunderstanding with our city of God for senior to be so angry?" An ancestor clasped his hands at Jianchen as he asked with an extremely polite tone. Jianchen coldly gazed past the ancestors of the 8 clans. His gaze became extremely sharp, like a drawn sword. Wherever he gazed past, the people would feel like they were being stabbed, feeling a vague pain. His gaze caused them to shiver despite the warmth. "Senior? Ha 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 ha. I never thought that I'd become a senior to you. People of the 8 clans, have you really forgotten so quickly? Why don't you open up your eyes and carefully look at who I am?" Jianchen laughed. His tone was mocking. With that, all the saint rulers began to examine Jianchen. Very soon one of them recognized him. His expression suddenly changed, becoming overwhelmed by disbelief. He cried out, "Why, you're Yang Yutian. You're Jianchen." The other saint rulers' expressions all changed as well when they heard Jianchen's name. Shock filled all of their eyes. They would have never connected this Saint King with a tremendous presence to that young man, who had almost died in the city of God all those years ago. The ancestors all thought of something else other than this, which was the protector Changyang clan that supported Jianchen. He was a member of the Chongyang Protector clan, so his status was incomparable to them. At this moment, two streaks of white light tore through the air. They quickly flew over. It was the President and Grand Elder, arriving on clouds completely condensed from radiant saint force with several experts following them. Yang Yutian, you're Yang Yutian. The President and Grand Elder both cried out when they recognized Jian Shen with a single glance. In that moment, they could no longer maintain their normal composure. Both became shocked. They would never have believed that the person with such a tremendous presence was the most outstanding genius in the history of the Union, Yang Yutian. Jian Shen also discovered the President and Grand Elder when they arrived. His gaze immediately became rather mixed with emotions, but he dismissed them very quickly. Right now was not the time for them to catch up. Jian Shen, have you come to my city of God to take revenge for what happened all those years ago? A cold female voice rang out in the sky. As it reached the end, a middle-aged woman in a purple dress silently appeared in the air, standing far opposite of Jian Shen. We greet Senior. All the ancestors of the 8 clans bowed when they saw this woman. Their faces became filled with respect. The woman was the ancestor of the Tsar family, Tsar Kaiyun. She ignored the greetings of the 8 clans and stared fixedly at Jian Shen's group. When her gaze landed on Rui Jin and He Yu who stood behind Jian Shen, she immediately became extremely stern. You must be the ancestor of the Tsar clan. You wanted to take the winged tiger god from me back then, and even wanted to kill me. Do you still remember? Jian Shen coldly stared at Tsar Kaiyun. Tsar Kaiyun could not help but think back to what had happened before. Her gaze towards Jian Shen became rather mixed, and she gently sighed. Jian Shen, I never thought you'd become so powerful after just a few years. However, I had no choice in the matter before. The winged tiger god was on you, and the beast god continent wanted to invade the Tianyuan continent because of the winged tiger god. We could only try to give the beast god continent the winged tiger god to save the continent, or all life on it would have been wiped out for sure. Are you willing to see something like that happen? Jian Shen remained expressionless. He coldly said, we can deal with our disagreements from years ago later. Ancestor of the Tsar family, I ask you, is the Prince of the Felicity Empire, Bai Jian with you? Bai Jian is indeed with my Tsar family, Tsar Kaiyun gently replied. Her voice possessed no emotion. Hand over Bai Jian, Jian Shen demanded. Chapter 1031. Fighting Tsar Kaiyun 1. As soon as Tsar Kaiyun heard what Jian Shen said, her face immediately changed. She said, Jian Shen, I don't care what disagreements you have with Bai Jian, but I hope you can resolve your differences in the future. I cannot hand Bai Jian to you right now. Since you can't hand over Bai Jian, I can only go and get him myself. Jian Shen's gaze became rather cold as great battle and killing intent surged from his body. It quickly skyrocketed while the Emperor armament had appeared in his right hand. Destructive chaotic force slowly poured out, revolving around the weapon. Wait! At this moment an old voice hurriedly rang out. An old man who seemed to be in his 70s shot up from below, carrying a person in his hand. It was Bai Jian. The Tsar family had a total of 2 Saint Kings. One was Tsar Kaiyun while the other was the old man before them. Jian Shen, greetings. The old man first greeted Jian Shen before continuing. Jian Shen, I am Tsar Vimer. My Tsar family is willing to hand Bai Jian over to you. I hope we can dismiss any previous disagreements and enmity, and we are willing to apologize to you for what we did before. I hope the slate between us can be wiped clean, and we can start anew. The old man spoke with sincerity. He did not want Jian Shen as an opponent at all. Bai Jian could not move since he was in Tsar Vimer's hands. When he heard the old man's words, he paled in fright. He knew exactly what would happen if he ended up in Jian Shen's hands. Save me, Senior Kaiyun, save me. If I die, Senior Kaiyun will never be forgiven by Senior Hao Wu. Bai Jian loudly pleaded. He placed all his hopes on Tsar Kaiyun. Tsar Kaiyun's eyes darkened as a sliver of determination appeared. With a slight movement, she silently appeared beside Tsar Vamos and struck at him with a handful of powerful energy. At the same time, She reached for Bai Jian with her left hand. Kaiyan, are you crazy? What are you doing? Zarvamo's expression drastically changed. He had never thought that Tsar Kaiyan would suddenly attack him. He was her great-grandfather after all. Although Tsar Kaiyan had moved suddenly, Zarvamos was still an experienced Saint King. He reacted in the shortest amount of time. He gathered a thick layer of world force in his hand in an instant and struck out with lightning speed. Bam! The two palms collided, and a muffled sound immediately rang through the air. A terrifying ripple of energy radiated in all directions, knocking away all the saint rulers who had gathered in the surroundings to watch. Although Zarvamos was Tsar Tsayun's senior and far older than her, his strength was much weaker than hers. He was knocked far away by Tsar Tsayun's casual strike, flying several thousand kilometers before stabilizing himself. On the other hand, Tsar Kaiyan stood firmly where she was like a mountain. Her body did not even tremble, as if her attack before was a careless strike. She had also taken Bai Jian back from Zarvamos, trapping him before her left hand in invisible energy. Get down and stay there, Tsar Kaiyan coldly said before throwing Bai Jian down into the huge estate of the Tsar family. Zarvamos was only shaken up by Tsar Tsayun's attack, so he was not injured. He immediately began to panic inside when he saw that Tsar Kaiyan wanted to protect Bai Jian, so he flew over from afar. He pleaded, Kaiyan, do you know exactly what you are doing? Have you ever thought about what kind of disaster you would bring upon the clan with what you are doing? Have you ever thought about the clan? Kaiyan, stop being silly. Bai Jian has nothing to do with our Tsar family, so just listen to your great-grandfather. Hand over Bai Jian for the clan. It's not worth it to put the entire family into jeopardy over an outsider. Tsar Kaiyan did nothing. She only coldly stared at him, as a sliver of obvious resentment appeared in the depths of her eyes. She coldly said, Do you still remember that matter all those years ago? It was because you forcefully interfered all those years ago that I separated with Hao Wu, agonizing me for my entire life. I only resent that I wasn't strong enough back then, that I could not resist the orders of you seniors, so I could only abide. But now, I am no longer the past Tsar Kaiyan. You no longer have the right or power to control what I want to do today. Zarvamos felt like his heart was being pierced by a needle as he listened to the cold words of Tsar Kaiyan. He painfully said, Kaiyan, I know I was wrong about the matter all those years ago. It's me who cannot make it up to you. It was your great-grandfather who destroyed the happiness in your life, but you're still a member of the Tsar family. The blood of the Tsar family runs in your veins. Are you really willing to see the Tsar family fall into depravity? Tsar families are family. Don't come talking to me about the Tsar family. In your eyes, there's only the Tsar family. Tsar Kaiyan suddenly became agitated. She stared at Zarvamos with a shocking glare as pain and resentment boiled inside. She gnashed her teeth. Since you're so afraid of me bringing trouble to the Tsar family, I, Tsar Kaiyan, will be cutting all ties with your Tsar family. From today on, anything I do will have nothing to do with the Tsar family. The experts from the Tsar family and the saint rulers of the 8 clans all had their expressions drastically change with that statement. No, ancestor, you are a pillar of support for the Tsar family. You can't abandon us. The experts of the Tsar family all fell to their knees in the air and became torn with sorrow. No, Kaiyan, you can't do that. You can't do that. Even with all the mistakes great-grandfather has made, you can't treat the clan like that. The clan cannot go on without you. Zarvamos' heart ached as tears streaked down his face. He was filled with regret. The president and grand elder of the Radiant Saint Master Union looked at each other after witnessing this. This had far exceeded anything they had imagined. Before they left, they had never thought that such a great disaster would befall the Tsar family. As the most powerful ancestor, Tsar Kaiyan had declared that she was leaving the clan. This was a devastating piece of news. Tsar Kaiyan closed her eyes in some pain. She had stayed in the Tsar family for a long time, so she had formed some attachments to it. However, she found that love was more important than the clan. In all these years, a certain estrangement has always been present between Hao Wu and me. Since Bai Jian said he can eliminate this estrangement, I am even willing to die here to eliminate it, thought Tsar Kaiyan. She then snapped open her eyes. And in that moment, her presence underwent an overwhelming change. It was no weaker than the supreme battle intent from Jian Chun as it surged into the sky. In that moment, sorrow had disappeared from her eyes. She became extremely determined. "Looks like you insist on protecting Bai Jian," snorted Jian Chun. His presence also began to skyrocket, vaguely surpassing Zar Caiyun's. Zar Caiyun coldly glared as a light azure sword appeared in her hand. She said, "Jian Chun, if you want to kill Bai Jian, do it over my dead body." With that, she attacked first, stabbing out with a gentle stroke as her sword danced in her hand. The strike seemed simple, but it possessed an overwhelming level of mysteriousness. The sword seemed to be slow, but it fused with space. It had traversed the distance between them in an instant, silently arriving before Jian Chun. Chapter 1032. Fighting Zar Caiyun. 2. Jian Chun's gaze suddenly turned into a glare. Although Zar Caiyun's strike did not come with an earth-shaking disturbance, it caused Jian Chun's cautiousness to greatly increase. He felt deeply threatened. Her strength had far exceeded his own. "Let me deal with her." Jian Chun called out to stop Rui Jin and the others. The battle intent from him became even more powerful, and accompanying it was a surging sword chi. Zar Caiyun was very strong, but she was not invincible. Strands of chaotic force poured from Jian Chun's dantian. They filled up every corner of his body in an instant, pushing his chaotic body to its limits. Every strand of chaotic force was condensed from vast quantities of energy, especially since Jian Chun's chaotic body was at the third heavenly layer. A strand of it was equivalent to all the energy someone who had just stepped into Saint King could condense, which was why Jian Chun's chaotic force was used up extremely slowly when he fought. If he used it to boost his body's defense, the consumption speed would be almost negligible. The Emperor armament in Jian Chun's hand began to gently tremble, and with a gentle sword resonance, it struck out with an aura of destruction. He sent it up to receive Zar Caiyun's sword without any fear. "Jian Chun, your opponent is at the peak of the 8th heavenly layer, and is about to enter the 9th. Be extra careful." Rui Jin's voice suddenly rang in Jian Chun's head. He had seen through Zar Caiyun's strength with a single glance, which was why he warned Jian Chun. Jian Chun became even sterner. With the Emperor armament, he could only display the strength of a peak 7th heavenly layer Saint King, which was a whole level of cultivation weaker than Zar Caiyun. The two of them clashed several times with lightning speed. Their collisions were extremely intense, and the activity they created was impressive. Every time their swords came into contact, it was like the collision of worlds, producing great booms and annihilating the space of the surroundings. Violent energy and fragmented sword chi would scatter in all directions, forcing all the saint rulers to continuously retreat to avoid being caught up in the battle. The City of God was one of the 7 capitals of the continent. It had existed for countless years and had experienced battles in the ancient times. However, it still existed, naturally due to its defense. At this moment, a tremendous barrier appeared in the sky above the city, blocking the sword chi and residual energy that splayed out from the battle. Its defense was nowhere on par to the one at Mercenary City, but Jian Chun and Zar Caiyun's attacks were unable to shake it. At this moment, all the streets and alleys regardless of size were swarming with people. Crowds of people had even gathered on top of various structures, almost causing some roofs to cave in. All the people in the City of God stood with their heads raised to the sky, as they unblinkingly observed the rare battle between shocking experts. Coupled with that was the ceaseless sound of discussions. Jian Chun quickly retreated, slightly falling into a disadvantage. Even though Zar Caiyun possessed the slender physique of a female, each strike from her possessed a great might, enough to destroy the surroundings. Rui Jin, He Yu, and Hong Lian stared unblinkingly at Jian Chun. They were ready to interfere at any moment. Jian Chun was their only hope for them to reunite with their clansmen, so they viewed his life with more importance than anything else. Meanwhile, there was a quaint little wooden hut that stood on a mountain peak in an ancient mountain range, several tens of thousand kilometers away from the city. Its wooden boards creaked as they were buffeted by the violent wind, as if the structure would collapse at any moment. A valiant-looking white-robe, middle-aged man sat in the hut with his eyes closed as he cultivated. He was like an old monk, able to sit there without moving for long periods of time. Suddenly, the man's eyes snapped open. A visible light shot out from his eyes, causing the space that he stared at before him to gently tremble. The man's eyes were extremely bright as he stared in the direction of the city of God in interest. He furrowed his eyebrows slightly and softly murmured, "There's actually a fight in City of God. One of them is Tsayun's presence. Just what is going on?" The middle-aged man was the same person who had ventured to the continent of the 100 races to fight a Class 8 magical beast, as well as the one who had obtained the magical beast's blood to cure the Grand Elder of the Radiant Saint Master Union. He was Hao Wu. Hao Wu sat on his wooden bed with a frown as the light in his eyes flickered. He was hesitating, struggling to come to a decision. He mumbled, "Do I go there and see or not?" After hesitating some more, he finally made up his mind. "Whatever. I just need to look while hiding from afar to see just what is happening." With that, Hao Wu disappeared. He made his way to the City of God silently at an unbelievable speed. Jian Chen and Zar Tsayun's battle constantly moved away from the City of God, leaving it very soon. They arrived in a desolate mountain range 100 kilometers away, and continued to fight intensely there. "Jian Chen, you're not my opponent. If you agree to spare by Jian, we can stop right now. How about that?" Zar Kayun coldly said, "I am naturally not your opponent in terms of strength, but that's not necessarily the case with swordsmanship. I will be claiming by Jian's life. There is no room for negotiating that." Jian Chen refused without any hesitation. It was impossible for him to spare by Jian. Jian Chen's arm shook violently with that. The Emperor armament became countless blurs that packed the space before him, quickly enveloping Zar Kayun. It was impossible to distinguish between illusion and reality with the blurs, so each blur seemed to be real. They all seemed to possess great power. This was all due to Jian Chen reaching the limits of speed. At the same time, Jian Chen used the illusory flash. He moved around Zar Kayun like a ghost, striking out faster and faster. Each attack possessed his full strength, equivalent to the full-powered attack from a 7th heavenly layer Saint King. Zar Kayun fused with the surrounding space as she calmly dodged Jian Chen's attacks. She did not use her eyes to keep track of the sword blurs, and instead she completely relied on her senses to strike out. She just happened to block the sword blurs with every strike. She coldly said, "If that's the case, do not blame me for not showing mercy." A vast energy surged from Zar Kayun, causing the surrounding space to twist. Zar Kayun raised her sword to the sky, and it immediately exploded with a dense azure light. Terrifying energy collapsed the surrounding space. "Scattered flowers of a heavenly maiden," Zar Kayun cried out. The terrifying energy around her sword immediately exploded, turning into extremely dense sword chi that scattered in all directions. Each sword chi was no weaker than a casual strike from an 8th heavenly layer Saint King. Jian Chen's expression slightly changed. He retreated quickly with the illusory flash, using his Emperor armament to block the storm-like attacks of sword chi. The powerful force from each block would shake his arm to the point where it became numb. Freeze space. A glimmer of light flickered through Zar Tsayun's eyes. She pointed at Jian Chen with her left hand, and the space there immediately froze, trapping and immobilizing Jian Chen. Spurt, spurt, spurt. With his body restrained, more than 10 powerful sword chis immediately passed through Jian Chen's body, forming the same amount of finger-sized holes. Blood immediately began to run out of the wounds. Jian Chen roared at the sky. Chaotic force immediately erupted from his body, and the Emperor armament began to shine brighter with dark light. A supreme force broke through the space, allowing him to recover his freedom. However, at this moment, Zar Kayun had soundlessly arrived before him. Her sword radiated a dazzling azure light as it mercilessly stabbed towards Jian Chen's throat. A sword intent countless times more pure than before began to radiate from Jian Chen at this moment. The wind and clouds immediately began to surge with its appearance, changing the weather. The surrounding air lost its usual peace under the influence of this sword intent, becoming extremely sharp, like it was filled with invisible swords. Chapter 1033. Fighting Zarkayun 3. The sudden change in Jianshen's presence immediately led to a change in Zarkayun's expression. She could not help but slightly slow down her strike heading at Jianshen. This was all because in that moment, Zarkayun seemed to feel that Jianshen was no longer made of flesh and blood, and was instead a sharp sword that stood in the world, radiating with a shocking sword chi. Zarkayun felt like she was looking at a sword when she faced against Jianshen, which shocked her greatly. Rui Jin, Heiyu, and Hong Lian all tensed up as well. They stared at Jianshen in surprise. Thoughts similar to what Zarkayun was experiencing appeared in their heads as well. The current Jianshen did not seem like a person to them. Rather a sword, a divine sword. Is this a battle skill? Heiyu stared unblinkingly at Jianshen as he murmured. The saint rulers of the 8 clans, and the people from the Radiant Saint Master Union, all stared at Jianshen in shock from afar as well. Disbelief flooded their faces. In that moment, all of them held their breaths, unwilling to inhale any of the air in the surroundings, since it seemed to be filled with sharp sword chi. Just a breath of it would cause piercing pain to their organs. A sliver of haziness appeared in Jianshen's eyes, but it quickly cleared up. He seemed to have understood something right now, having obtained a grasp on something unclear. With the Emperor armament in his hand, he slowly stabbed out according to a feeling that had sprung up from nowhere in his head. Jianshen's stroke seemed slow, but it was extremely fast. It was disillusioning. An extremely pure sword chi erupted as the sword traveled, causing the surrounding space to collapse. This was true sword chi. It was extremely sharp and acute, much mightier than sword chi condensed from power. It made people feel like it was unstoppable. As the Emperor armament struck the sword in Zarkayun's hands, the sword chi actually knocked her sword away, while the Emperor armament continued on with no reduction in force. It stabbed at Zarkayun's chest with unstoppable momentum. Spurt! The Emperor armament stabbed into Zarkayun's chest, impaling her. In that moment, the sharp sword chi and destructive chaotic force wreaked havoc on Zarkayun's organs, turning them to mush. Zarkayun groaned as she stared at the Emperor armament in her body in disbelief. He refused to believe that she could be injured by Jianshen with her current strength. But the next moment, her left hand struck Jianshen's chest with lightning speed. Terrifying saint force surged from her palm, breaking through the defense of Jianshen's body with supreme power, and knocking him away as he vomited blood. Meanwhile, the sword in her chest was withdrawn as Jianshen catapulted away. Jianshen, I never thought that you'd have a saint-tier battle skill as well. Since I've seen your saint-tier battle skill, it's time for you to taste mine. Zarkayun's power did not decrease. Despite the sliver of paleness on her face, she remained extraordinarily mighty, as if her injuries were nothing to her. A terrifying presence began to radiate from her body, filling up the surroundings as it made the sky shake. At that moment, Zarkayun seemed to have become a war god, as she radiated with a tremendous presence, able to destroy her surroundings. The surrounding air became thick as even space began to solidify bit by bit. A terrifying pressure descended. It seemed to originate from the surroundings, immediately causing mountains to collapse and the ground to sink. Casting a saint-tier battle skill with her strength at the 8th heavenly layer of Saint King, possessed the power to destroy the surroundings. Jianshen was knocked 1,000 meters away, before coming to a halt. Blood ran down from the corner of his lips, as a temporary sense of confusion and doubt clouded his eyes. He was still thinking about the moment when he had attacked before. Jianshen seemed to have entered a wondrous mental state earlier, as if he had become a sword, and was no longer a human. The attack before was also performed casually as he followed the feeling, yet the power within it far surpassed what he should have been in possession of. Strong enough to injure Zarkayun, who was at the peak of the 8th heavenly layer. However, he had lost that wondrous feeling now. He could not use a similar attack again. Way of the Tyrant's Sword, Galaxy-Devouring Sword. At that moment, a cry rang through the sky. Zarkayun had already reached an altitude of 10 kilometers, as she glowed with a deep azure light. Terrifying ripples of energy radiated from her body as a huge, 100-meter-long sword condensed above her. It shot towards Jianshen with incomparable force. As the sword shot through the sky, The originally bright sky began to darken. Even the energy of the world and invisible world force that filled space itself vanished. The sword of energy seemed to have devoured all the energy and light. Jianchen became unprecedentedly stern. Zarkayun, even without casting the Saint Tier battle skill, was not someone he could defeat. And with the Saint Tier battle skill, it made it even more impossible for victory. Just resisting would become extremely difficult. With a thought, a golden streak of light immediately shot out from the center of his eyebrows. It quickly transformed into a 100-meter-tall golden tower that shined with a blinding light. The Octotera Divine Hall had already been devastated by Kaiser, so it was unable to be used so soon. Only the Saint Artifact could block Zartsayun's Saint Tier battle skill now. Boom! A deafening sound erupted when the Saint Tier battle skill collided with the Saint Artifact. Casting a Saint Tier battle skill with her strength, as an 8th heavenly layer Saint King, was already on par with the casual strike of a Saint Emperor. It was extremely terrifying, knocking the Saint Artifact far away. Way of the Tyrant's Sword, Void Annihilating Sword. Zartsayun's cold voice rang out in the sky once again. She did not stop with her attacks. Another 100-meter-long sword condensed above her head, shooting towards Jianchen at the speed of lightning. The sword was filled with destructive energy, reducing the space of wherever it passed into darkness. Way of the Tyrant's Sword, World Obliterating Storm of Swords. The Way of the Tyrant's Sword was a Saint Tier battle skill with 3 attacks. As soon as the second attack was launched, Zarkayun followed up with the third attack. Immediately, 100 or even 1,000 swords appeared around her. All of the swords were condensed from energy, and every single one of them was 10 meters long and radiated with a terrifying aura. None of them were any weaker than the first 2 attacks. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.